Good morning. Distinguished guests, dignitaries, esteemed participants from various ministries, departments, international organizations, research organizations, and universities. I, Parul Verma, on behalf of the Administrative Statistics and Policy Division of the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, express my heartfelt gratitude for your presence at this brainstorming session on leveraging non-conventional data for official statistics. With the rapid advancement of technology and data science, non-conventional data sources have emerged as powerful tools to supplement and enhance conventional data. These non-conventional data sources hold immense potential for expanding the scope of official statistics and thus are the need of the hour. Today, we have gathered here to brainstorm on the diverse applications of such non-conventional data across sectors including ministries, international organizations, research organizations, and universities. The insights and expertise from the session will be invaluable in shaping a more integrated and data-driven approach to policymaking and governance. Before we begin with our brainstorming session, to welcome our esteemed guests, I request Ms. Bhavna Joshi to provide sapling to Shri Kris Gopalakrishnan Sir, Honorable Chairman, Exceller Ventures and co-founder Infosys, as a token of respect. I now request Ms. Shobha Sharma to provide sapling to Dr. Saurabh Garg Sir, Secretary, MOSPI. I now request Ms. Himanshi Trivedi to provide sapling to Mr. Shombi Sir, UN Resident Coordinator. I now request Ms. Aisha Saeed to provide sapling to Dr. Rana Hassan Sir, Regional Lead Economist for South Asia, Asian Development Bank. I now request Ms. Bhavna Joshi to provide sapling to Shri P.R. Meshram Sir, Director General Data Governance, MOSPI. I now request Ms. Shobha Sharma to provide sapling to Srimati Geeta Singh Rathore Ma'am, Director General, National Sample Survey, MOSPI. I now request Ms. Himanshi Trivedi to provide sapling to Shri N.K. Santoshi Sir, Director General, Central Statistics, MOSPI. Now, I request Shri P.R. Meshram Sir, Director General Data Governance, MOSPI, to deliver the welcome address. Sir is a 1992 batch Indian Statistical Service Officer. Sir has served in various ministries like Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Development of Northeastern Region, and Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying. Sir, please.
Good morning all of you. Sir Kris Gopalakrishnan, co-founder Infosys. Secretary Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Dr. Saurabh Garg. Shri Rana Hassan, Regional Lead Economist, South Asia, Asian Development Bank. Shri Shombi, United Resident Coordinator. Director Generals, other officials of MOSPI, distinguished panelists, representatives of central ministries and departments, United Nations agencies, universities, research institutions, friends from media, and ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. On behalf of MOSPI, I extend my warm welcome to you all for your presence. It's my profound pleasure to have you here today to this important event on leveraging non-conventional data sources for official statistics. In an era of rapid digital transformation, the landscape of data is evolving faster than ever. Traditional data sources, while reliable, are often limited in scope, frequency, and timelines. Meanwhile, non-conventional data sources such as satellite imagery, social media, mobile data, and web scraping offer immense potential to complement official statistics and provide more granular, timely, and relevant insights. Today's session brings together a diverse group of experts, statisticians, data scientists, policymakers, and stakeholders. Our goal is to engage in open and innovative discussion on how we can harness these emerging data sources effectively and ensuring accuracy, representativeness, and ethical use. We will explore best practices, challenges, and potential framework for leveraging and integrating non-conventional data sources into statistical system. Your contribution through your diverse experience while implementing policy and programs and the challenges faced therein would be key in charting out the future plan of non-conventional data use in India. With that, I welcome you all once again to this brainstorming session. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to a productive session ahead. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for your kind address. Now, I request Dr. Rana Hassan, sir, to kindly deliver his address. Sir is the regional lead economist for South Asia in Asian Development Bank's Economic Research and Development Impact Department. Sir's research areas and interests include industrial development, labor economics, urban economics, and poverty and inequality. Sir has previously served as a director in ADB's research department and as a fellow at the East-West Center, United States of America. Sir has published in various journals, including the Journal of Comparative Economics, Journal of Development Economics, Review of Economics and Statistics, and World Development. Sir has co-edited 2 volumes on trade and labor-related issues. Sir holds a PhD in economics from the University of Maryland and a master's degree in economics from Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi. Sir, please.
Thank you very much for that very generous introduction. And Dr. Garg, thank you so much for inviting me to this discussion. Data is very, very close to my heart, and I think 90% of the work that I've done on India actually has been using MOSPI survey data. So while I realize that it's not the non-conventional data, what I'd like to present today in my remarks, and very briefly, is just in our own experience in doing work at the ADB on policy issues, the power that we get when we combine survey data, admin data, and big data. And so I'd like to just in the next 5 minutes or so just provide 3 examples and then talk about some of the challenges I think we face in bringing together the use of survey data with these non-conventional data sets. So getting to the applications. First of all, cities as growth hubs. Now, many of you will recognize that this has been a big part of the Government of India's budget statements. A corpus of 1 lakh crores has been set aside to upgrade urban infrastructure and encourage our states to better manage their cities. What does better management mean? It means also looking at how to modernize our building bylaws. It's about improving land use planning. It's about integrating urban planning with economic planning and transport planning. And I think as you can probably anticipate, the use of data is just critical in this exercise. So I'm just going to show a couple of examples on the work that we've been doing for the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and of course encouraged by the DEA. Second is on industrial parks. We know that India has a very ambitious Make in India program. We're seeing more and more manufacturing firms come in. We're seeing a boom taking place in electronics production and exports. And industrial parks play an important role. A key issue is, okay, how are these industrial parks affecting their neighborhoods? And once again, I'll just show a couple of examples of how big data plus survey data, and specifically MOSPI survey data, can be an extremely powerful tool for informing us. Final one will be on logistics. Infrastructure gaps. We know India has an ambitious agenda on trade. The country is one of the fastest growing, it's probably the fastest growing major economy in the world, and that simply means that trade in India is expanding rapidly. That has implications for logistics infrastructure. And so once again, I'll just show an example of how this can work. Now, first coming to the issue of cities, and this is, I don't want to spend too much time, but this is on the left-hand side, it's basically an image from satellite data. So we're looking at the case of Indore. This middle area in black and yellow is the municipal corporation area of Indore, and the area under the red boundaries is what we see as Indore from the sky. So it's basically much wider. In effect, the city is much more than the municipal boundary. It encompasses a lot of other smaller towns and village areas. And on the other two panels, and this is where now marrying the big data, the satellite data with MOSPE's data has been so useful for us, because in our dialogue with the government, we were able to demonstrate that over time, and this is from the economic census of 1998 and 2013, what we see is the share of manufacturing in the administrative city, that's the administrative boundaries of the municipal corporation of Indore, coming down, but the manufacturing employment outside the city is expanding. That's the natural city, what we call it. The final chart is simply showing us that when you're looking at large-scale manufacturing, plants are moving away from inside the city, they're moving outside. Why this becomes important is the two are actually very intimately linked. And so urban governance cannot just be about the municipal corporation of Indore and what it's doing. It's got to be much broader, encompassing multiple towns and village areas, and we really require metropolitan governance. And that metropolitan governance can be really informed by data. This is now something very, very recent. This is something that we're doing again with MAUA, and Niti Aayog is also working with the government of Odisha. And here, this is just an example of how, when we were talking to the government, we realized that understanding of how Bhubaneswar, Cuttack, and Paradip Port and Puri, the economics of this region is not as well understood at a granular level. And this is where data like the ASI frame or directories of establishments can really help us see where are the large plants, where are the connectivity gaps, etc. I'll just proceed. Sorry, can we just go to the next slide? Yes. Coming to the whole issue of industrial parks, we can see from the left-hand side chart that industrial parks are proliferating. And mind you, that chart itself is based on administrative data, which is with DPIIT. And so DPIIT actually makes this data set available for download. It gives you all these information on different industrial parks. It's extremely useful. And the big policy question is exemplified by that little satellite image, where on the right-hand side, actually, that's a cluster of very modern factories, including, I believe, one of the Foxconn factories. And then in the yellow on the left-hand side, you see a census town. If I may say so, the proper planning is not there in that town. It's a census town. We haven't seen good investments in urban planning over there, and yet that place is expanding, and it has a very intimate relationship with what's happening in the industrial park. And so one of the big policy questions is, how can we enable the neighboring areas to really benefit from these industrial parks? And I'll just skip. I'm running out of time here. But basically, what we're able to do is, once again, marrying this data from the administrative data with, again, economic census data. We're able to examine how sub-districts are getting affected by these industrial parks. And I don't want to get into numbers over here. I just want to make this point that this data allows us, at least at first glance, to see that the sub-districts where there's a SEZ located is seeing fairly rapid growth in various types of economic outcomes. Finally, coming to this issue of logistics infrastructure, the big question is, okay, what logistics infrastructure do we need to support our exports? Prior question that comes up is, where are your exporters located? And what we found out is that this is not an easy question to answer, because when you use the DGCI's data on shipping, often what happens is that the exporter's data is only telling us where the headquarters are located. Where are the producers located? Because that's where we need to understand what are your, road to port, and even your suppliers. You're an exporter, but where are your suppliers located, and how do we think about that logistics? And what we realized is that the ASI actually is a nice data set that allows us to at least take a first crack at this issue. Now, the ASI information on exports, yes, does have its challenges, and this is where we have been exploring with the MOCI, with whom we are doing this study, on how we can use GST data, e-way bill data. Now, on this, I'd just like to mention that in fact, this is a good segue into what I have to say next about accessing administrative data. So there are clearly, issues of confidentiality. There are issues, data protection laws come in. There are issues of legal mandate. What we've seen from our experience with other Asian national statistics organizations is that they may lack actually the authority to access private sector data, which can be quite useful. So there are a number of legal issues that need to be taken up. As far as some of the privacy concerns, it's very gratifying to see that one of the solutions that's been used is to have these public sector centralized platforms for data access and analysis. And MOSPI, as we know, is moving ahead on this. And also there's this issue of how we can anonymize and aggregate data and provide it to researchers, so while defending. So I think these are the two key tools that we have, at least that I know of, and it'll be great to plow ahead with these. Certain technical issues must be resolved. I sometimes, hear there's so much enthusiasm with big data, but how representative are that data for your population? Clearly, satellite imagery data it's like a census, but there are lots of other data sets which are not. And I think as users, we need to be very careful about the properties. What population subgroup is this capturing? How representative is it of the group that you are actually trying to help? I'll just continue. I think I'm really almost out of time over here. Can we move to the next slide, please? Organizational barriers, what we've seen, and this is from ADB Statistics Department's experience with some of our other national statistics offices, especially the smaller ones. They often lack funding, they don't have the staff, they don't have the technology to handle these data sets. So in one case, for example, in Vietnam, we worked with the GSO, the Government Statistics Organization, to help them use satellite imagery data to get estimates of rice production, how much rice is being harvested, etc. So this has been a long-standing program with them, and that's one way through which we are trying to help on the technology side. Second one is the approval processes. So I think here this is really an appeal to other ministries to expedite their processes, if not just for researchers, certainly for the NSO. This is an issue that we've seen in a number of countries where ministries don't necessarily share the data as soon as fast as it's needed by the national statistics organizations. And I'm hoping that today's deliberations, this is probably something I think that will come up. Really, final issue is it's an issue of public goods. A lot of these entities which have big data are private entities, and they might not prioritize public data sharing. In fact, sometimes they may feel that it goes against their competitive advantage, and I think that's where providing at least to the NSO it should not be an issue. I mean, yes, of course, you don't want data to go to your competitor, but if it goes to the NSO and they're very strong protocols, this is something we must encourage the private sector to recognize. It's almost as if they do have I mean, they're citizens, and we need to sensitize them to the role that they have in improving the public data and analytics. So this is really, I'm on my last slide. This is the economic barrier. There really is high costs, and so especially when it comes to private sector data. We ourselves at ADB typically we're much better funded than, let's say, many research organizations, and even we have difficulty on this issue of costs of private sector data. But again, this is something where we need some collective solutions and these centralized platforms can be there. And I think maybe it's not just governments, but governments and organizations like ours, maybe we have to think of ways to pool funds and, you know, subsidize the sharing of these data sets. So with that, I'm just going to stop. And once again, thank you for inviting me to what I think is a very important set of discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your enlightening address. Your invaluable insights truly pave the way for more innovative and data-driven future in policymaking and governance. We are truly honored to have had the opportunity to benefit from your vast knowledge and expertise, and we look forward to translating these ideas into meaningful action. Now, I request Mr. Shombi Sharp, sir, UN Resident Coordinator, to kindly deliver his address. Sir, a national of the United States of America, is the UN Resident Coordinator for India since November 2021. Sir has devoted more than 25 years of his career to promoting inclusive and sustainable development internationally, bringing experience he has acquired at the United Nations and externally to this position. Sir, please.
Thank you so much, dear colleagues, Dr. Garg, Secretary Mosby, Shri Gopalakrishnan, sorry, still early in the morning, but your name precedes, absolutely. Shri Meshram, DG Mosby, Shri Rana Hassan, colleague from ADB here as well, to all of the DGs here from Mosby and ADGs and all of the colleagues across government, United Nations, academia, private sector. It's a real honor to be here on behalf of the United Nations family in India, to be joining you. I think we're talking about data, innovative sources, non-traditional sources of data and measurements. So perhaps it's relevant to mention that today is the International Day of Happiness, and that famously comes from a neighboring country, Bhutan, who adopted this idea of gross national happiness as an alternative to gross national product. So let me wish you all Aap sabhi ko Antarashtriya Prashanta Divas ki hardik shubhkamnaएं from the UN Parivar. Just like to again really express the appreciation to Mosby and government colleagues here for bringing us all together around this incredibly important issue. It's famously said that data is the new oil, but I think what's happening here and what's happening in India, it's sort of treating data as the new green hydrogen. So really stepping beyond into a new era, a new realm. And we see, as Dr. Hassan was already sharing with us, we see examples, use cases abound everywhere we look. So we know why this is so important. We understand that when we can marry traditional statistics with big data, with citizen-generated data, you get very powerful information for decision-making, whether it's hospitals, healthcare providers able to predict patient outcomes, whether it's using the Internet of Things together with urban infrastructure to achieve efficiencies, better traffic patterns, you name it. Infamously, militaries are using mobile phone usage patterns to understand movements of the enemy. So perhaps here we're really talking about creative, innovative ways to use against the enemies of, let's say, poverty or pockets of poverty or service blind spots, these sorts of things. But we see farmers using satellite imagery. It's incredible. The smallest smallholder farmers now can have access to the most advanced satellite imagery in terms of understanding the impacts of climate change. Educational institutions can tailor programs for individual student needs as well. So really, this is about understanding the complementarity. Official data remains absolutely the cornerstone of government planning and machinery. But this non-traditional data sources can really provide the real-time kind of information needed to make real-time decisions. The colleague, Dr. Hassan, already mentioned a number of sort of global United Nations initiatives here, and we are helping to bring these sources here for India's purposes as well. The UN Global Pulse is one example. The Global Environment Monitoring of UN Environment Program, another example. And these are being used across the Asia-Pacific region in particular. So we have very relevant use cases relevant to India. Here in India, UNICEF's U-Report is able to leverage 3 million, the insights of 3 million young people across India to provide citizen-generated data as well. So there's so many tools and sources available. I guess part of our challenge is really, in a way, is three. One is to understand what are those use cases, how can we get value out of this source. Two is to prioritize, because at times we can be a bit overwhelmed with the amount, the volume of data floating around. And three is the means and the quality, because or the interoperability, as was mentioned also. So it's bringing all of these together. That's where we're going to get the magic, sort of like, I don't know, baking bread. You have some salt and some sugar and some wheat and yeast. Together it doesn't do much unless you apply heat. And that's where you get this chemical reaction. So we're really together creating this chemical reaction that will give us something much, much greater than the sum of the parts. And the citizen-generated data in particular, I think, is a really exciting new dimension of what we're talking about today. But it needs to be seen within a quality assurance framework. And so that's where we're very honored to be working with MOSPI and with the government of India on helping to develop this quality assurance framework, so that you know that what's coming out of the algorithms is something that can be relied on as a complement to the official statistically rigorous data that we are using. So I just wish to say again thanks to everybody here in the room. You are helping us resolve this paradox, and that paradox is today we have the Sustainable Development Goals are woefully behind. 87% of our global targets are off track. And yet we have more resources than we have ever had before to tackle poverty, to lift people up in inclusive and sustainable development and economic growth. So thank you very much. Bahut bahut dhanyawad. Aaj ki charcha achi rahe.
Thank you, sir, for the insightful address. Your esteemed presence and invaluable insights have provided us with a profound understanding of the transformative role of alternative data sources in modern governance and its complementarity with conventional sources. Sir, we are truly indebted for your guidance in navigating this evolving landscape. Now, I request Dr. Saurabh Garg, sir, to deliver his address. Sir serves as Secretary of India's Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Previously, Sir was Secretary in the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, where the focus is on vulnerable communities, and has led the Unique Identification Authority of India to strengthen the Aadhaar system. Sir also worked in the Ministry of Finance on direct benefit transfer and foreign direct investment policy. An Indian Administrative Service Officer, Sir has led senior roles in Government of Odisha and served as an advisor to the World Bank. Sir holds a PhD from Johns Hopkins University, a Master's in Business Administration from IIM Ahmedabad, and Bachelor's in Technology from IIT Delhi. Sir, please.
Thank you, Mr. Gopalakrishnan, Mr. Shah, Mr. Hassan, my colleagues from the ministry, and friends and colleagues from different ministries of Government of India, different research institutions, international institutions. Thank you all for being out here today and sharing your experiences over the next few hours that we are here. The ministry's tagline, the Ministry of Statistics tagline, is data for development. And I think that really puts the focus on what we are trying to do, how to ensure more data-driven decision making. And with that in view, we are looking at various aspects of data. On data that is available, is can be used, and how we can make it more effective use for decision making. Traditionally, we have looked at survey data, and we do a number of surveys. I don't want to get into those details, but they have been used for the inflation data, the unemployment data, the GDP growth numbers that we bring out regularly. But I think over the past decades, we have access to now a lot of administrative data and alternative data. Administrative data, what all the ministries have. In fact, we recently brought out a compendium of what are the data sets that some of the major data sets that the different ministries have, and it's more than 200 odd data sets that we have compiled, which would be perhaps very useful in being able to provide policy makers some kind of evidence for better policy making. Apart from this administrative data are the large number of alternate data sources that now exist, whether you call them alternate data or non-conventional data, which is what was mentioned by Mr. Sharp and Mr. Hassan, for example, mobile data, satellite data, road toll data, GST data, and a host of these that are now available. Some of these we are able to find methods to combine with survey data. But I think one of the biggest challenges remains on how to integrate administrative data, alternate data, and survey data in a manner which is statistically robust and where you can draw inferences which would not get, if I can use the word, tainted by different forms of data, because the definitions may be different, the method of collection is different, and how we can ensure that we can get robust conclusions out of that. And I think that's really the challenge that we are grappling with, that perhaps we have a set of data that is available. Number one is access to that data, because there are issues. Some of them is public data, some of them is private sector data. So what exactly is the data that we need to access? We need to define very clearly, because obviously there are issues of anonymization required and privacy that we have to keep in view. In general, the data that is used for policy making, we need aggregated data. We really don't need disaggregated data, but obviously the aggregation has to come once you have the disaggregated data. And the second part of, apart from access, is to ensure that it is interoperable, or it can be used across, or we can compare two sets of data. In fact, to that extent, we've set out a couple of standards over the past few months. We've set out the national metadata standards. What are the basic metadata that in case any department or any ministry or agency is putting out data, then what is the definition of that data, what is there, that metadata should be clearly defined. And the second thing that we've also brought out is a kind of a quality assessment framework, so that each ministry, each department, each public system can identify what exactly, how does it stand in that quality assessment. And it's a self-assessment tool. We're not looking at anything more than that, but it gives an indicator of what kind of quality is expected of that data. And apart from that, a third thing that we've recently issued is a set of common identifiers which could be used by different ministries or departments, which will help when we are trying to, let's say, pick up GST data and maybe some road toll data and get some sense of the GDP out of it, that we are talking about the same thing. And these identifiers are in three parts. One is individual identifiers, which are of course like the Aadhaar, the PAN card, or the Bal Aadhaar, like that. The second are the enterprise identifiers, which is again PAN for the GSTN number, or Darpan number for the non-profit organizations. And then we have the spatial identifiers. Obviously, latitude, longitude is one of them, but the Panchayati Raj ministries, the LGD, the local government directory is another. And just last week, the Department of Posts has set out DigiPin, which clearly identifies that every part of the country in a 4 meter by 4 meter matrix would have a 10-digit digi-pin so that you can clearly identify where it's spatially located. A combination, depending on what that data is, using one of these identifiers would not only help the ministry but also help ensure that we can use it for decision making in a much more effective manner. I'm not really going to go over what are the kind of non-conventional data available, but you have a host of them. Smart meter data is there, but again the issue is how widespread is it used. So supposing you use smart meter data for electricity consumption, but is it universally available? How many meters actually exist with that? And those are the kind of issues that we would like to grapple with and try and figure out what can be done with, in some cases, administrative data which may not be universal. I'll perhaps stop here, apart from saying that we have now, from last year now, become members of the UN Statistical Commission, and which allows us to participate in a number of other task forces, teams that exist in the UN system, which look at global issues. And one of them is the UN expert group on big data and data science. So that gives us an opportunity to know better what's happening, but it will also give us a platform to highlight what we have been doing in India and what we can do. So with these words, look forward to today's deliberations and hope that we can come to a better understanding both of what kind of data is available and what kind of uses we can make for that data. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your invaluable insights. Your words have not only enriched our understanding, but have instilled a renewed commitment to advancing official statistics in a dynamic and responsible manner. We remain profoundly grateful for your presence and for the immense value you have imparted to this esteemed gathering. Now, I request Shri Kris Gopalakrishnan, sir, for his keynote address. Sir is the chairman of Exceler Ventures, an accelerator that helps startups during early stage of their business journey. Sir served as the vice chairman of Infosys and the chief executive officer and managing director of Infosys. Sir is also one of the co-founders of Infosys. Recognized as a global business and technology thought leader, he was voted the top CEO IT services category in Institutional Investor's inaugural ranking of Asia's top executives and selected as one of the winners of the second Asian Corporate Director Recognition Awards by Corporate Governance Asia. Sir is the chairman of the council IISc Bangalore and is the chairman board of governance of Triple IT Bangalore. Sir, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saurabh Garg, Shri Shombi, Shri Rana, Hassan, Shri Meshram, friends and colleagues. It's an honor and privilege for me to be part of this deliberations. I was fortunate that for MeitY, there was a committee formed on non-personal data framework recommendations, and I chaired that committee. We gave our recommendations some time back, actually about 4 or 5 years back. Some of those recommendations have been taken forward. Some more have to be implemented, and I'll touch upon some today. India has an opportunity to create an inclusive society leveraging technology, especially digital technology. You know, the way we have implemented Aadhaar, using Aadhaar for various citizen services, and creating an inclusive society using the India Stack, UPI, the various applications that are built on top of that, clearly shows that our own unique way of implementing digital systems, implementing digital technology, leveraging that for governance, leveraging that for development is, I believe, a model for the emerging countries, but I believe it's also a model for the world. The key principles are the digital public infrastructure, digital public goods, and innovation on top of that, private innovation on top of that, where we make sure that using public resources, using philanthropic resources, we build this infrastructure that's necessary for private innovation and use cases on top of that. This ensures that the ownership of this data rests with fiduciaries that are public in nature, that think about the best use of this data for the development of society, for the development of the country, for development of industry, for providing citizen services, etc. I believe that this is the major contribution that India is making when we think about transitioning to a world that's digital in nature. This becomes even more important with new technology like AI, artificial intelligence, which allows us to now leverage this data innovatively and creatively in providing new sets of services which hitherto were not even possible, because you can now extract insights, especially leveraging disparate data across many let's say sectors, fields, etc. You can combine, for example, pharmacy data. You talked about regional and PIN code data. You can look at the prevalence of a particular infectious disease in a geography, in a region, and the availability of medical resources, healthcare, etc., and come back with emergency response when a new let's say outbreak is there, etc. But this is dynamically created, extracting data from various sources and pinpoint where the response is required. So what I wanted to bring out here is that we can talk about what data sources that we need to collect and what use we will create, let's say, in the near future, but there is also the need to have access to broad range of data sets, so that on the fly we can create new solutions, new services, etc. It could be emergency response, it could be disaster management, health, outbreak and things like that. And the advantage again India has is we have the talent, especially in technology. We have the ability to collect and manage this, especially using the framework that we have created, which is digital public goods framework, and making this data available for providing services. So for example, I'll give you one more example. Reserve Bank of India has announced the Universal Lending Initiative, ULI, similar to UPI, and the idea is to provide frictionless credit, especially to the bottom of the pyramid, the farmers, the BPL families, etc. What it does is it aggregates data about farm ownership, data about what is cultivated there, ownership of data, even tracking things like purchase of fertilizers and things like that. All kinds of data it can aggregate. And when it comes to MSMEs, GSTN data, other transaction data, bank accounts, etc. And anybody who wants to create products for lending to these segments, then can go to single source and use that data to provide loans. And it reduces the cost. See, once this data is aggregated and we have a mechanism to maintain this data, then this can be reused again and again and reduces the cost for lending for any service provider and things like that. So, we can actually innovatively, creatively come up with various use cases for the data. This also empowers the startup ecosystem and the entrepreneurial ecosystem to again reimagine the types of services and products that they want to introduce. What was not possible before now becomes possible when this data is made available. So, sustaining this architecture, the philosophy of digital public goods, I believe is very, very important when we look at the use of data for providing better services to our citizens for national security, anything that we can think of. So we, I think, are probably at the forefront of crafting a progressive regulatory framework for all kinds of data, non-conventional data, personal data, non-personal data, but we have the opportunity to do this for all kinds of data that's available both in public as well as in private hands. We need to include private data also. We need to create a framework for access to this private data, again by specifying legal and rightful use of this private data for providing services to the citizens for use in our country. And this is what our non-personal data governance framework recommended. Of course, the Digital India initiative has laid policy measures like the National Data Sharing and Accessibility Policy. This, I think, has been taken forward. All government departments make non-sensitive data available in machine-readable formats, accessible for public data, accessible for private innovation and things like that on top of it. I do want to commend MOSPI for taking various initiatives in establishing National Data Repository, National Strategy for Development of Statistics. You have also come up with anonymization techniques, various initiatives you have taken, and today's deliberations will take it forward also. But I think the policy framework that we have created, data empowerment and protection architecture, again, we need to take it forward to full implementation. We have to establish, and I think we probably have already established the Data Management Office under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. We need to take it forward and make sure that that's implemented across various government departments. Now, states also have various initiatives. So, Karnataka has the Open Data Policy. Telangana has a data sharing protocol for smart cities. So, we need to harmonize all these things, all these initiatives, such that all that is available for us to take advantage of and leverage it for providing citizen services. So, one is standardization of data formats and interoperability protocols. The National Data Governance Framework policy takes steps in the direction, but implementation remains crucial. We need to build data processing capabilities at scale, and this is now required, especially because with AI, the training requires significant computing resources. So we need to now work with the National Supercomputing Mission to provide the essential infrastructure that's required. We have to strengthen the data security framework. Non-personal data must remain non-personal with robust anonymization and encryption standards. Now, coming to encryption standards, now we need to really move forward to look at quantum secure encryption going forward. That's possible now before even quantum computing becomes a reality. We also need to foster data literacy from government officials to entrepreneurs, understanding how to interpret and utilize data so that we can extract full value out of this. So I believe that deliberations like this allows us to come up with various ideas, various outputs that can take us closer to the reality of an inclusive society using Digital India framework. Key is, of course, implementation. And this is where I believe that a unified strategy across government is required. And I hope that we will address that in today's deliberations. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for the insightful address. Your gracious presence and insights have truly elevated this occasion, leaving us enriched and inspired. Your visionary perspective on leveraging non-conventional data for official statistics has shed new light on the limitless possibilities that lie ahead in the pursuit of data-driven excellence. I now hand over the mic to my colleague, Aparna.
Thank you, Parul. We now begin the technical sessions for the day. I request Dr. Pankaj Shreyaskar, Deputy Director General, ASPD, to deliver the thematic presentation by the Administrative Statistics and Policy Division, MOSPI. He is a 2000 batch officer of ISS. Sir is a quintessential researcher on the issues of data, transparency, and governance. Sir has authored a couple of books and articles. Sir, please.
Thank you so much, the Chairman and the distinguished guests present here today. This is a small presentation giving a brief as to how do we understand non-conventional and what we are doing in the ministry. Next, please. This is an overview which all the distinguished speakers and panelists have already spoken about, that there are structured data sets and that we understand as surveys and census is the conventional one, and we have the non-conventional data sets which are quite dynamic in nature. Administrative data sets are there. Then we have transactional data sources, the census data, and all sort of data which the distinguished panelists have already elaborated upon. Next, please. These are certain examples which again has been elaborated by each one of the presenters today, and we can see that these kind of data sets, alternative data sets, are being used various ministries, including by this ministry itself, and we use these kind of data sets to triangulate the estimation processes or the other outcomes released by this ministry, but in a limited sense, and as has been underpinned by the distinguished speakers, that it is not that easy to access these kind of data sets, and therefore as much as we can do, we are making use of these data sets for various purposes. Next, please. These are again tracking data, online searches data. Online searches data are quite used by in the academic circles, where lots of ministries' data generated by the government of India are being used to generate so much of academic literature, and that deliberates many recent issues through which the ministry departments are bringing about their reports. Next, please. The challenges have already been listed by the distinguished panelists and the speakers. The issue of digital data literacy and the data privacy and ethical issues, which will immediately be coming to the fore. Interoperability is an issue, and the issue of coverage because of the nature of the administrative statistics that comes to the fore. Next, please. But there are humongous amount of opportunities which the administrative data and the alternative data sets generates for us, and each one of the distinguished speakers have given their own ways as to how they have seen these are the opportunities and given examples as to how they have been used there. And these are the cost effectiveness, granularity, real time, and the reduced respondent burden. Insofar as this ministry is concerned, it will be very, very important for us to reduce the respondent burden. Next, please. So these are the possible outcomes of these kind of generation of the non-conventional data sets and the deliberations that we are holding today. It might give us some sort of new areas where we can chart our ways to decision making in the ministries. Next, please. Thank you so much for this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the informative presentation and setting the stage for technical sessions. We now begin with the first technical session. The panelists for the session are Shri M.C. Gaur. Sir is the Additional Surveyor General, Northern Zone, Survey of India. Sir has more than 27 years of experience in the field of survey and mapping, including geospatial technology. The second panelist is Shri Ayago Wambile, sir. Sir is a senior economist at the World Bank's Poverty and Equity Global Practice, based in New Delhi, India. Sir's expertise includes diagnostic and policy analysis, economic growth, labor markets, poverty and inequality analysis, and social transfers. The third panelist is Professor Bappaditya Mukhopadhyay. Sir is an expert in analytics at the Great Lakes Institute of Management, New Delhi. Sir is also a visiting professor at IIM Calcutta, University of Ulm, Germany, and SP Jain Center of Management, Singapore and Dubai. The fourth panelist is Shri Ankur Bansal. Sir is the founder and CEO at GDI Partners. GDI is India's pioneer firm in governance reforms, partnering with 8 state governments and 4 central government ministries. GDI specializes in solving large-scale problems across India by partnering with governments and philanthropies. The session will be moderated by Shri P.R. Mishram, sir, Director General, Data Governance. I request sir to kindly moderate the first technical session. I hand over the floor to DG, sir. So please.
Good morning again, once again. Now I request Dr. Garg to start with his presentation and the first one.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for providing me this opportunity to be present here. Data has always been a very valuable tool for the decision making, and now in a digital environment, this has provided us an opportunity to integrate various data sources from conventional and non-conventionals. So with this, I'll be highlighting only how the geospatial component of data can be integrated with the conventional data set to make it more effective and valuable in decision making. So integration of geospatial and statistical data is done through the Global Statistical Geospatial Framework, which is introduced by UN organization. This GSGF framework has 5 principles. So number 1 is use of fundamental geospatial infrastructures and geocoding. This is a establishment of a common geospatial reference. See, whatever data we have been collecting, publishing in the conventional data, what was lacking was it was not have a locational component. It was never related to a common framework where the data pertains. So the first principle is that whatever data we are making conventional data, it should relate to a common geospatial reference framework. Then second component is geocoded unit records in data management environment, which means linking statistical data to geographical locations. See, statistical data is very important, but unless it is, as has been highlighted by our earlier speaker in the morning, Hassan sir, that unless we have the locational component, we say that growth is taking place, we say that this is happening, but where it is happening? So the location component, so it is the linking of the statistical data to the geographical locations. So the third component is the common geographies for dissemination of statistics. So when we disseminate data, that it should be, there should be consistency in the geographical representations. The data which is being disseminated should also pertains to the which geographical locations. And then there is a fourth component of interoperability between the geospatial component of the data and the statistical component of the data. And the fifth one is making these things accessible to the public through a geoportals. Now, how this can be done? There are two ways of doing this. One way of linking your statistical data with the geographical boundaries. It can be village level, taluk level, ward level. Survey of India is having an administrative boundary database which can be linked with all the available conventional data system. Second is the grid system, where we have a national grid of 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer, which has a unique identification number. And when we link it with conventional data with the grid system, so all your conventional data will have a geographical locations. Thank you, sir.
Next, now I request Shri Ayago Wambile from Senior Economist of World Bank to have his presentation on the matter.
Thank you so much, Secretary Morpi, Dr. Saurabh Garg, Shri Gopalakrishnan, Director Generals and Additional Director Generals of MOSPI, representative of the international organization, distinguished guests. Mine is just to give a flavor in terms of overall non-conventional data sources and also or what we call the alternative data sources, which is that this alternative data sources has been in use for quite some time, over the last decade, in different forms and in different extents. So just because this is a brainstorming session, I want to take advantage just to mention one of the key activities that we are currently engaging or discussion at the preliminary stages is a workshop just on this, 2-day workshop that we are trying to organize. I think that's the initial discussion. And discussion is that we want to focus on 4 main data sources, alternative data sources. And I want to use this brainstorming session so that we can get inputs, so that we can have a lot of discussion during this workshop in terms of planning. And these data sources basically are mobile phone data, scanner data, geospatial data, and AI and big data. So we want to focus on this because this is some of the data sources that have been in application in different form. For example, on mobile phone data has been extensively used. And here we are looking at tourism statistics, but basically leveraging the current program operations that we have in Maharashtra, in a project we refer to as Maharashtra, and see where the application of tourism data can be applied using mobile phone data. The second one is the scanner data. The scanner data is mostly used in mostly in developed, like for example, UK or other countries, on CPI data collection. So the outlets, different outlets, major outlets, you use the scanner data you use to calculate the CPI. So we want to use this also, that opportunity to go into depth on this data. Geospatial data, as I already mentioned, has been applied in different form, and I will go into details in terms of the use of the geospatial, in terms of mobile phone data. And then that fourth component is AI and big data. And this is a new data source that is being applied, extensively applied at the moment. So we have different players. We have identified use cases and international partners that we are partnering with. For example, in AI Big Data, we are partnering with UK Data Science Campus with this. So if you have any inputs or ideas in terms of how we can package this during this 2-day workshop, your ideas, welcome the ideas on this. So now what I will do is I will go straight to specific data use, which is the mobile phone data, and how this has been applied in different settings, for example, that the bank has used in different settings. As mentioned already, I think different speakers mentioned, that we use mobile data as a complement to official data, official statistics. So we already have official statistics, in this case, sample surveys, but where sample surveys do not give us granularity or more information, we opt to use these alternative data sources. In addition, sample surveys data you do every 1 year or every 2 years or every 5 years. This you get more frequently. So how do we apply this information that we now have more frequently and use this information? So for example, in the case of Senegal, this has been used in malaria situation, monitoring malaria cases. Senegal also mobility, urban mobility has been applied, and this is not only Senegal, I think this is applied in different settings, just how application of mobile data in different situations, as well as targeting of social transfers. The other application of mobile data is on poverty mapping. As you know, the sample surveys representativeness is not representative to the lower administrative units. How do you use big data, geospatial data and mobile phone data to get more granular poverty estimates or different estimates? So you apply this information to get more granular, and this example of poverty mapping at the small area estimation. So you do use apply this. We have, you have also used geospatial data in terms of how to use geospatial data to do poverty mapping at the lower level. This case is also in the case of targeting. How do you do targeting in terms of transfers during the crisis? For example, we have seen this during COVID, how countries have applied mobile phone data, mobility, to do targeting in terms of transfers. But some of the challenges have been mentioned, but just to mention, in terms of one specific use case, in terms of, in this case, Ghana, is that you can use mobile phone data, but they have some caveats. And the caveats, for example, in Ghana, what they have seen is that there is higher concentration in terms of the use, particularly across gender. So men tend to have more mobile phones than females. So the information you get might be skewed. So how do you do sampling to make sure that you have representative data? The second one is a lot of phones are mostly from the working age population. Elderly people or younger population do not have phone numbers. So the representativeness of what you get is skewed. So how do you make sure that this is represented? Secondly, there is a lot of concentration in urban areas than rural areas. So I think there's a caveat, but I think this is somewhere we need to work on sampling to make sure that what we get from these alternative data sources are more representative. This is just a repetition of what has been said already. But just to go, I will not go into details in terms of strength, but there's so many discussions in terms of what are the strengths of alternative data sources in terms of phone data, limitations of it, challenges, and here challenges we are talking about access of the data that has been addressed, privacy of the information you get, the skills of people. I think we don't have it's already mentioned that we in the keynote address that the skills are available, but making sure that this information are utilized well, and then the quality and representative as I mentioned. Then the other opportunities in terms of that these data are mostly available at the moment, how do we leverage it? And then there are different stakeholders. I just wanted to put this, that there are different stakeholders even with this information we have. There are subscribers who wants to protect their privacy and will want to prevent misuse of the data. And then the mobile data operators who wants to, they have legal representative of what they have, and then protect, commercially sensitive data, for example, and then the regulators who wants to adherence of regulation. I don't want to repeat this. This has been mentioned in the keynote address, but I think just to repeat again that just to repeat that this information will go into detail in terms of this 2 days workshop, and we will come all the ideas and information, and we'll go through those four alternative data sources that I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayago. Now I request Dr. Professor Bappaditya Mukhopadhyay.
Good morning, everyone. It's just a privilege to be here, and it is more from knowing from you that what are we doing right or wrong, and hopefully I'll be able to contribute something. But here is what we are doing. It's a brief background. We come from academics, so obviously once in academic there are some natural constraints about certain things which we can do or which we cannot do. And given a bit of my training in economics, one of the problems which I was interested in is that the typical survey data in any country, and especially probably in India, would have the problem of moral hazard. And therefore, one way to solve the problem of moral hazard to look at unstructured data which cannot be strategically manipulated, and that's why the interest of in going in satellite image, what kind of data. So what we are trying to do is we are doing very simple thing. We want to see that how at a granular level, at an all India level, we can create some key data and with some reasonably high frequency, and then try to create some quote-unquote products or indices which can be used by policymakers or government or anybody who is interested, even for academic research. So what we are trying to do is, we were looking at the Google Earth Engine, and essentially we looked at from the, right now, we have managed to cover about 336 odd districts. That would be about 373 villages, about 3,500 sub-districts that cover 20 states, reasonably more than half the total land area, 70% of total population, and we have collected the data monthly. And then what we are going to do is we are aggregating them quarterly. So now the way we have done the data is that we picked up a district for a particular month across various variables, and we tried to generate about at least 100,000 random pixel samples, which would mean that from every village we had about 1,000 observations, which when aggregated at a village level would give me a fairly good idea about the village, although we are at a stage of testing and validating. And what we are finding so far is that maybe it's better to, although we have the data at a village level and hopefully that can also be used, we want to go at a sub-district level where even we aggregate the village level data to a sub-district level. And just for today, we want to just present 2021. We are looking at the sub-district Q1 and Q4, and some of the variables which we have taken. So the first one, which the information which we have collected is the land cover and how things are changing. Then we looked at some of the environmental variables like soil, rainfall, drought index, the emissions, some economic prosperity, which is the nightlight data share of built up, and then also map it with the agricultural performance. So that's what we want to do at a very granular level. So I'll probably present a couple of 2 or 3 images what we have. So this is a nightlight by district. So we have nightlight by district as well as sub-district. So these are kind of scaled. We see large part of them are red, but there are some which is high, green and blue. We have a Q1 and Q4, and there is not much difference between Q1 and Q4, and we should not expect, because nightlight should not change a whole lot between Q1 and Q4. And we can even go down to the sub-district level. So far more denser, and we can go to even village level. But nightlights would be a good proxy, and there's an academic literature which talks about how nightlight can be a good proxy for a very local level prosperity, okay, even at a village level. Although the village level nightlight proxy is probably not that robust, but certainly at a sub-district level, you get a reasonably good proxy to say that, you know, if the nightlight are above a critical value, those are more prosperous. And most importantly, these are very dynamic. So if we can actually track it every quarter, every monthly, we will be able to give some idea about how a particular area or a sub area is progressing. We do the similar thing by the soil stresses. We find some part of the, some part of India has a better soil quality, less stress, and there are some part because of the geographical location, we are finding the stress, and this again can be tracked over quarters and over the years. There are some portion which is gray because we have yet to do the data. We have yet to kind of extract the data, and we are trying to figure out how to kind of go about doing it. We also try to do the same thing, which is the Palmer Drought Severity Index, and we find that towards the northwestern part of India, we have a lot of stress level on the drought, but post-monsoon that gets better. And that's again a clear indicator that as we move from Q1 to Q4, how things change. Again, if you do the similar kind of analysis by a sub-district, we get even a granular thing. We can do for across quarters, we have been doing across years. We go through agricultural share of crop by district. This is basically looking at, from the NDVI data which we use in geospatial, that what percentage of the area in a particular village and therefore aggregated to a sub-district or a district is under cultivation. Again, tracking that gives us a good idea about what kind of things are changing on the ground. Then we are looking at the methane, and one of the things are that, with some part of agricultural activity, there are methane emissions which also happen. So Q1, which is typically during the paddy harvest season, the methane emissions are reasonably higher than the Q4. That's what we are seeing. This is again the UIDAI radiation, again a proxy of the emissions which we have. Now, that's the kind of thing which we are trying to do. And then what are the things in pipeline? So one is obviously we have a fairly good idea that the nightlight can give a good proxy for prosperity, but we need to be able to do it at a very granular level income proxy. So that's the first thing of validation which we are trying to do. We have some decent results, but that's the first thing which we are doing. Similarly, the emissions data which we get from the images, we also want to kind of do it with the sensor. We are trying to map the agricultural output with the NDVI ranges, and the whole purpose of doing this is once we create this data, we want to make it completely public and free. And that's the part of the data lab which we have. That for academic usage, for any usage, we want to create it and then kind of make it available so that more and more people can work on it. Few things which we want to do. We are trying to create some indices. For example, can we create a sustainability index? So we have a prosperity on one side. We also have emissions. We know there is a correlation between prosperity and emissions. So can we actually create an index which is at a sub-district level and which can be tracked, let's say, every quarter? The idea is that, we want to create something like a transition matrix. So a transition matrix would be, if we can look at, so it's like, we want to rate every district or sub-districts as like a AAA, AA we do. And then we want to see how it kind of changes from quarter on quarter. So are the diagonals heavy? So how many of those, geographical smaller entities which got a particular rating in a quarter suddenly skipped up 2 ratings in the next quarter or went down 2 ratings? And those are the areas to kind of look at. So if you can do a granular analysis, maybe that would be useful. We may not have the resource to find out why it's happening, but if we can indicate that this is happening, maybe other agencies and others can get into figuring out why. The other research which we are also trying to do is we are we are trying to do it with some other data and try to figure out that what is actually the true cost of an agricultural produce. So we have a fertilizer cost, we have an input cost, but how do we find out the environmental cost? How do we find the water table degradation cost? And that's the true opportunity cost of a produce. So then these are the kind of things which we're planning to do, and we'll be happy to once we do that with some support from people out here, maybe we can do it for all districts, all sub-districts, and on an ongoing basis for every quarter. So thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mukhopadhyay. Now, the last presentation here from Shri Ankur Bansal, GDI. May I request him, please?
Thank you, everyone. And I'll be sort of presenting our view on how the non-conventional data can be used. So the purpose of my presentation today is threefold. How the non-conventional data can be integrated into the official statistical purposes. The second purpose of my presentation is what are the learnings from other countries and how they have integrated various type of alternative data, and especially I'll be talking about, because alternative data is also a very vast field, I'll be talking about citizen generated data through the either the scanner data, credit card data, and various other data. And third is how India can start its journey for two very important surveys, which is the CPI survey and the household survey, and with the collaboration of all the experts in the room, how India can start its own journey. So that's the purpose of my presentation today. First, if we look at how the alternative data can help official statistical systems in a country. First is it allows to generate more statistical product. For example, the traffic data can help create camera data on the highways and all can help create a product on the traffic statistics for the country, which is sometimes not available. Second purpose, how it can help is complementing at various existing statistical product. For example, CPI. CPI we do monthly basis, but can certain alternative data complement the work which is done at such a large survey at such high frequency? Can it help improve some of the accuracies or find some of the differences which sometime comes? Third, it can sometimes also help replace some of the existing statistical product which are done through survey basis. For example, index for consumer confidence entirely through the social media thing which is coming up, and many countries have done that. Now, why it's important for India to start looking at these things now? In the last 15 years, we are seeing that about 3/4 of the new household which are coming up, they are nuclear families, and which is a very, very drastic difference in terms of how Indian demographic is changing. And also the research says nuclear families spend roughly 25% to 30% more on goods and services as compared to the joint families. The second insight from various surveys which has come out, that because of the young population, the changing consumer behavior is very visible. Earlier, those visible changes were in 15 to 20 years, but now those visible changes in terms of the spending habits are coming in 3 to 4 years. So that's why it's important to have the high frequency and maybe the use of alternative data as ways to calculate some of these matrices. Rising urbanization is also allowing a lot of formalization of economy to happen much quicker, and migration is also changing some of the dynamics of some of the surveys which has been done in the country. I'll not spend more time. Next slide, please. I'll not spend a lot of time in terms of what are the alternative data, because the speakers before me have already covered that. But my focus is actually on the citizen generated data, because I feel that is something which is generating a lot of data in India right now. But before we go there, I wanted to highlight some of the journeys which has been traveled by various countries, some smaller countries, larger countries, developed countries, underdeveloped countries, and so forth. So if you look at the example of Estonia, which is considered a very pioneer in terms of digitalization and all, they are now using the mobile data for coming up with a tourism statistical series, and that has been done for 14 years, where any sort of tourist comes in, they have the phone number, and that phone number is used to see the pattern of tourism activities in the country, which is a powerful way how the citizen generated data is used for the tourism statistical. Canada is using roughly 50% of their CPI items through alternative data, which is a huge change, which they have traveled this journey over the last 12 to 14 years, and now 50% of the items are captured through the alternative data. Philippines is doing an interesting experiment with the alternative data, where some of the SDG reportings are now not happening on the administrative data, but are happening on the citizen generated data, which is providing them the educational level improvement, health indices, and so forth through the citizen generated data. Bangladesh is using, I think some of the earlier panelists have also explained the example of how the poverty estimation can be done by using the mobile data, by using the transportation data, by using the traffic, sort of the light data. So that has been done, experiment has been done in Bangladesh. Japan is now trying to forecast the GDP numbers by using the alternative data. And I will talk about the Japan example very in the next slide, where Japan sort of released some of the data where they release frequency is in 5 weeks. But they took upon themselves and said, can we reduce that time even lesser? And alternative data is providing them this opportunity of reducing the time from 5 weeks to 2 weeks. And that is creating better visibility to the policymaker and to the private sector. Australia is using the household survey data through alternative data. Again, this is in experimentation stage. Right now, they use both the survey data and the alternative data, but through various research, the plan is to some way supplement this rather than just being a complementary thing only. Now, if you look at, sorry, it's not working. I can skip this. Next slide. Yes. So I think one of the challenges which comes out when we talk about the alternative data. So we think that the 5 metric which always allow that why it becomes difficult in a country like India, and those 5 matrices are generally the digital transaction penetration. In India, if you look at the digital transaction penetration of credit card and debit card, that is only roughly 3%. While if you look at the examples of the country which have tried this successfully, there the number is higher than 50%. So that's a big bottleneck. Second thing is the informal economy, where our economy is roughly 50% informal, while in some of the developed country, that number is in single digits. Third is the retail structure. Organized retail structure is 19%, with higher penetration in urban India in the country, while in some of these countries like Canada, US, Australia, that is roughly 70 to 80% is the organized economy. Digital infrastructure is also building up in India, but if we compare that with some of the other countries, we are still way behind that. And regional diversity is also important. India's regional diversity is much, much higher, so it becomes much more complex to use these standardized survey and all. While some of the other nation, there is not so much of heterogeneity in the population construct and all. But still understanding these challenges, our way is that if we start looking at India as an urban area separately and the rural area, then our number starts looking very differently. So our view is that India can try experimenting with the alternative data in 3 phases, where the first phase should be really figuring out what the data sources should be, risk assessment of various challenges which needs to come in, implementing a regulatory framework. Many successful countries have experimentation a lot of time, and they really came back into because the regulatory frameworks were not allowing these kind of alternative data use to happen. So maybe this is a time where the regulatory frameworks can be put in place. MOSPI and the other ministries are having the conversation with a lot of startups, the quick commerce side, the e-commerce side, where trust building exercise can be done with them. So some of the consumer behavior data or consumer consumption data can start coming from there, and also start trying some alternative tricks like web scraping in an ethical manner, and also develop partnership with some of the agencies who can scrape this data much faster. So that's what we are looking at. In the phase 2, implementation can be done in a urban India, where this can start, because urban India data is available and the ratio also looks much different when we start looking at urban India data and the overall India data. Technological and infrastructure readiness is important. I think the keynote speaker mentioned about partnering with improving the compute capacity at processing these things is quite vital. Then conducting some pilots on those things. Various countries where they have seen, like if I take an example of US, earlier US was capturing the data of gasoline from 4,000 gas stations, but that was becoming expensive for them, and when they start doing that through alternative data, they realize the variation of gasoline prices which was captured through the survey data and through the alternative data was less than 1% variation over a period of 2 years. So sometime at many places the variation is so less, and the timeline and the cost can be reduced significantly. And third is implementation in the rural India, because the belief is that some of the data which is required for the rural India is still not digitized at a level where the alternative citizen generated alternative data can be used. Then this is basically a framework where what has been done is some of the important items which are used in CPI or the household consumption level. What is the level of concentration in those things? Whether few companies can provide 60-70% of the data, or the market structures are very fragmented. And some of the consumer items like the railways, the flights, entertainment like cinema and all, where the markets are very concentrated. So the approach can be used where we pick up these concentrated markets and try experimentation with the citizen generated data on those items, because the food and beverages, cloth and footwear, electronics, those markets are much more fragmented. So it will take some time to start on these things. Very recently, Big Basket, which sort of supply in various parts of the country, we try to sort of do experiment of scraping their daily prices of various items, fruits and vegetable items, just to see whether some insights can be generated, and this scraping was done in an ethical manner. So it shows, early result shows that there are some low-hanging fruits where the integration with the alternative data can be done. Not everything, but some of these things can be done. Potential for getting data for various items in a very quick time period. Pretty much on a daily basis, this data is available on this thing, and this data can be provided on a actual price, discounted price, actual price paid by the consumer. So a lot of this data can really help provide some of the insights which are there. And possibility of reducing the time. The time is a big factor, because these are high frequency surveys like a CPI survey that can be done much faster. Again, the way forward, I think it's always important, and I'm not sure whether this is the right forum, but I'll still say it out. 4 things are very critical: having a skilled team. When we talk to some of the other countries' statistical system and all, they have created separate teams for alternative data, and that ranges from 40 to 100 people who are working specifically on different alternative sources of data, engaging with the companies and so forth. That's very important. Technical readiness is also important, because the amount of data you start generating through alternative data, that multiplies many-fold. So the technical expertise in terms of data storage, data processing, data security is important. Onboarding of the private agencies in India, especially the quick commerce, e-commerce industry, are required. Not only in India, everywhere there has been resistance whenever data has been requested from the private sector, because of fear of their pricing strategy, fear of data, private data being used and so forth. So somewhere the regulation, but along with the regulation, a lot of trust building exercise has been done with all the companies which has provided the data to the states and a lot of legal backing. I talked about it earlier, legal backing where this data transfer from the private sector or alternative sources start becoming a reality under the legal framework of this. That is the sort of the way forward, and that's where I want to end the presentation. Thank you very much, and look forward to hearing from you and learning from this session.
Thank you, Mr. Bansal. Now we can open the stage for the question answer. Anybody is having any question, one by one they can start. Chairman sir is having some.
I have a question for Mr. Gaur.
Sir.
You talked about that 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid.
Sir.
Now, Post Office also has come up with this DigiPin. Have you synchronized these two?
No, sir. Actually, that's what I was saying, that there are the multiple data sets created by the many agencies. Recently, we have created a UTM grid for the whole country on a 1:2000 scale. We are doing a Naksha projects for Department of Land Records. So that's why my intention that if you want to include your data with the geospatial, there are two ways of doing things. Either the geographical, like you linked with the state, with a district and a city, or up to village level we have the administrative boundaries. So these statistical data can be linked with the geographical boundaries, or statistical data can be linked with the grid. Both options are available. So it depends how you want to integrate the two data sets. How you want to give the geospatial location to your data set. Sir, in India, because we have federal structures, so most of the things and the schemes are being linked with the geographical boundaries, and the progress is also being monitored whether how the things are being done at the village level, at the taluk level or block level. So that has the one advantage. The grid system has another advantage, that it gives you a precise location. Like you say something is happening in a village, so village is quite large, but when we use the grid system, something event or some statistics.
I understood that, but
we have not.
How do we harmonize these two so that
so that
geographical location can be using just one?
That grid is the shareable and is available.
But the DigiPin has to be. Then, Professor Mukhopadhyay, you had shown 3 different examples, right? Nightlight, soil, agriculture. How does the soil change from one quarter to another quarter?
It is basically the soil moisture. So the moisture retention, so pre-monsoon, post-monsoon, so that's the change with the agricultural activity.
But it could change if the irrigation scheme just happens and the improvement in soil, the moisture levels will improve rather than just by climate, but artificially.
I think across all such programs, we probably should look at the data science programs now, which our educational institutions are offering. Whether we can, talent is coming as a issue, right? People who are equipped to use data, use statistical tools, etc. So maybe look at the curriculum to ensure that the proper skilled manpower is available, and that also will help in employment generation.
Anybody else? Sir, please.
Thank you very much. Just some comments actually. The first point, which was quite common, was about tourism. So I can just share you some of my experience that when we are trying to deal with the data on tourism, there is enormous data which is available on the web. This is inside the hidden layer, and this data, if you can use that, it is going to give us a very good outcome from the statistics point of view, and that possibly will change one of the economic sector of the country. So, well, I'm not going to give the details here, that we can talk later on, but and then this data, and most of the data is available through the APIs of Google. You just pay a small amount and the entire data will come to you. So that is going to change a lot, many things. Right. Second thing is about traffic data and other things. Yes, we have statistical measures based on data science and artificial intelligence, where the live data on the traffic can diagnose various types of problems. For example, if there is examination center of this type, and if you want to see through the live camera feed that if everything is fine or not, then by the movements of the candidate in the examination hall, we can diagnose whether some malpractice is being done or not. So these things are possible. We have the data. Third thing which I'm a little bit saying, you see, when we are talking of the definition of the alternative data, we are just going by the traditional ways, mobile data, satellite data, etc., etc. To my opinion, the definition of the alternative data is dependent on the problem which you want to solve. And yes, I agree, mobile data, satellite data, image data, etc., these are some examples. But there is going to be enormous list which is beyond our imagination also. So we need to keep our minds open. Well, this can also be a data sources. Well, in my presentation, I will talk about this thing. So I just thought let me give you a comment here. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Sanjay this side, Director, Ministry of Tourism. I have two small questions. One with Mr. Bamli. You had mentioned the mobile using of the mobile in the tourism data. Just I wanted to know, the gray means lightning, the concern is there. How will ensure the completeness of the actual visitor? Right now, not only the India, every country are posting more or less. They are doing the limiting of the completion. The actual number of the arrival, either the inbound or the domestics. Using the mobile, considering that there is the limitation of the penetration of the mobile, or the most of the people visiting to the one location to the other location and the same day to third locations. So the challenges is coming how the actual number would be counted in that particular positions. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think in this case, what you need is a triangulation of different sources of data, because one source, for example, mobile phone data can just not provide the information you need. So one source can be API, as mentioned, Professor mentioned just now. The other one is mobile phone data. The other one is credit card information. So there's a lot of need to triangulate this information and basically say, did this tourist actually been here or not? No? Because one source cannot provide that information. Mobile phone data cannot just provide, as a single source cannot provide that information. So this triangulation of data, and I think as a use case, and as I mentioned, there's we are planning to go into detail this information in this workshop that I mentioned already, 2-day workshop, to go into details and maybe look at practicality of these things. As the keynote speaker has mentioned, actually went into details in terms of what governance, privacy, all this information will be gone through this. Just to mention two things that my team at the World Bank, I think World Bank is doing different work on these alternative data sources, but two things that my team is doing, poverty and equity team within the bank. One is we're working with the Ministry of Rural Development to evaluate the impact of the program. It's called PGS, this rural road connection. They have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So we are trying to do the impact assessment of that, and we're using geospatial data to see where the road extension has happened or not, and do some impact evaluation using geospatial data as well as other sources of data. The other look is the international poverty estimates that we have at the state level. How can we go more granular? And for this, we are trying to use the geospatial information as well and phone data to go at least more granular to estimate the international poverty work. Thank you.
My question is Mr. Ankur. Yeah. You mentioned that the Estonia is producing is 14 years in the stage, the travel data. How the accuracy of completeness are being ensured, depicting the fact that against the total populations, certain age of the population are not using the mobile first. The second, you have also mentioned the transactions. And you had also mentioned the country by country, the card penetration is different. Secondly, any the transaction, either you take the Visa, you take the Mastercard, the card penetration country by country, it is varying, where the 40% is somewhere, the 50% is somewhere in the maximum extent, and the number is getting duplicated. Okay, so the uniqueness how it has been inserted, because they are not sharing with each other that particular data that is not available to the any country. Yeah, please.
No, thank you. And I think these are not easy questions to answer, because there is a lot of depth which these countries have gone to, and sometimes those depths are not available in the secondary research. But I'll talk about the Estonia example. So they are using the mobile data as one proxy, but at the same time they are using a lot of this transportation data. Then from the airport where the sort of the vehicle are going, which location those guys are going. So that's also a proxy. And I'm sure they would be using some other data which I might not be aware of. So, and I think the objective is not ever to look at the completeness of data, because even in the survey also, any survey, you can never ever record or monitor or measure or compute every transaction. The idea is, again, not Estonia, but some of the work which has been done by Australia, US, where they have done both the techniques, where they have gone the conventional way and they have gone the non-conventional data way also. And they have balanced it out what are the models which are giving a good prediction. Like I was telling you an example in Australia, where the gasoline prices data have been collected, the normal survey based and the known survey through alternative basis. And over a period of 2 years, when they checked the variation, the correlation was 99% plus, which gave them the confidence that actually now this model which they were doing, which is not census based, some things might have got missed out, but still it is giving them such a reliable number to what they were doing, so they can get away with that. Similar thing Brazil have done on the flight prices, where they also ran this experiment for a parallel experiment for a certain period of time, and they also realized the correlation of prices between the two on the flight was very close to the real, other than some of the anomalies and all, which I'm sure they would have factored in their models and all. So I think the idea is not to capture, and I'm sure none of the country would have captured each and every transaction into that. On your second question around the numbers in India looks very differently when it comes to the card transaction number. Like the recent data we looked at, only 3% transaction in India on a retail happens through credit card. But UPI also, like if you look at UPI, if you add the UPI transaction, the numbers start looking much higher. And that's why when I talked about the way forward, I'm saying start looking at urban India separately than the rural India. Because if you cut the data of India from the digital transaction perspective only for the urban India, then it starts to look at a scale where these alternative data realization can be done fairly quickly and all. So that's why we are saying that don't do it everything at once, probably prioritize, pilot it and see how these things come up.
Just I want to add, I want to add here. See, when you want to look at alternate sources of data, you can run pilots as was mentioned, and look at it for maybe a year or so. Look at how they correlate, how much they correlate, etc., and then you can decide whether you want to use it or not. But these pilots have to be run with multiple sources, and this is where I again believe that AI tools must be used rather than doing it, creating these manually or But AI is a very good way in which you can find relationships, patterns, etc. very easily. So you need to think about creating, if I may say, equivalent to a large language model, where you feed in all these data from non-traditional sources and let the machine actually bring out correlations for you, patterns for you, which then you can use. So creating a language model using non-traditional data, all sorts of non-traditional data, I think is one one thought I have.
Few questions to any panelist can take them. First is, sir, there needs to be a framework of geocodes. So we just heard that there is a one into one geocode, then there is a digi thing. So what is the best geocoding we need to do for the statistical purpose? So that we need to finalize before we move forward at all. And coming back to sir, I just wanted to ask Professor Mukherjee over here. Sir, you talked about night light, and I just wanted to understand the source of that data which you are using. And I just read a paper, 2015 paper of Johan, which says that Milan Dow experienced a GDP uptick, but because of the use of the other source of lighting, the nightlight was not so much effective in finding these out. So how do you ensure these things that development is happening, people are shifting to the alternative source of lighting, whereas we assume that everybody is using sodium lights, and then nightlight images are and indexes are based on that. So how do we ensure that these type of vitiations does not happen when we do it? And last question, sir, to all the panelists is, when we talk about countries like Estonia, I just want to put some figure over here. Estonia has a area of 45,000 square kilometer. Any guesses? India, 33 lakh square kilometer. So if you start building mobile based data analysis over there, there will be 100 times more investment required. So should we not do a cost benefit analysis first, find out what is logical to do, what are the best possible steps? And lastly, sir, as chairman sir said, we need to have a intersectional, interdepartmental team available over here, which has economists, which has geospatial scientists, which has statistician, which has computer scientists, and then only we can probably move forward in this.
I'll just try to respond to the nightlight question. So we are primarily using the Google Earth engine, the nightlight satellite, the VIRS part.
So the source, sir. The source is which one? The black marble or VIRS?
VIRS.
NASA VIRS?
Yeah. Now, the other part about the nightlight authenticity in terms of validation, that is very valid. In fact, there is a lot of research saying that for areas which have lower nightlight, so it doesn't do a good job. So underdeveloped areas, nightlights are typically bad in terms of predictions, and that's what we are also finding. So there are two ways. As Saurabh was saying, one is a pilot. Okay, and the second one is, rather than using nightlight to the decimal points, that's why we are talking about putting them in the buckets. So an area which is, let's say, a very highly developed area gets a AAA, and a very underdeveloped area. So basically that kind of, once we try to fine tune between every radiant value, then we are going to have a problem. But if we club a particular area, so this will be able to say a particular sub-district falls in this category, a CCC category or AAA category. But we may not be able to distinguish between two sub-districts which are, both of them are underperforming. But again, the trade-off which we are saying is that this is something which we can do at a high frequency level and a reasonably reliable data which says that this is at the lower level and this is at the higher level. So I think that's the thing which we'll do with the pilot.
Any others? Actually, Rohit was having 2-3 questions, sir. Just yes, no other has taken up, so I can say something about that. You are right that best geocoding data, which is used for your statistical purpose, like Professor Saurabh also you have said, you have to find out which is your alternate data useful for which your topic. Accordingly, it will be decided and depends. It is not easy to say right now which geocoding will be better to you. Depending upon your project you are having, you have to decide, and we have to have the experimentation. What entire panel is saying is, we cannot use it straight away that this is available, so use it. So applying and putting it into practical use, it takes time. You have to work out which one gives a better coordination, and accordingly you have to train your models. And right, the Estonia example you said, you cannot say use directly the cases of small countries in India, but yes, in a pilot way somewhere we can say, we can think about it, and then we can scale it up. So anyone else is having further? Yes, sir.
Can I add one thing? Sorry, if you allow me, if I can add. I think as a country like India, right, we don't have many comparable countries when it talks about the scale. There are only 4 or 5. But I always also believe, and I want to put it out here, that that should not be a limitation of not learning from the smaller countries. India is maybe a combination of 1,000 Estonia or maybe 2,000 Estonia. And what technology does is cut through this scale and not multiply the cost by 1,000. I think some of the systems which are required doesn't multiply the cost at a level where the India operates. And some of the examples like UPI or Aadhaar and others have shown that when the structures are put in place, whether the scale is Estonia or scale is India, China, the thinking doesn't change significantly. Those are built on the fundamental basis for scale. So I just want to put it out here because I know sometimes we just get into this that the country is not comparable, but I think now with at least the last 10-15 years of journey of digital India, I think those questions need to be looked at slightly differently. At least that's what my view is. Sorry.
कोई और है?
So I have a small clarification from Shri Bansal that CGD, citizen generated data. So Minister of Statistics and Program Implementation already exploring the possibility of how to integrate the CGD data with our official statistics. So in this direction, we have already have a brainstorming session or a workshop with a good number of civil service organizations recently. In this regard, perhaps you may be aware of that there is a Copenhagen framework so that CGD can be integrated with the official statistics. As far as Copenhagen framework, only 2 countries, Kenya and Ghana, they have worked a certain letter and they have prepared their framework. In case of India, we find it is a very big country. Every state, everywhere you can find language problem, there are a lot of problems. So that there is no specific standardization how to integrate this CGD data with the official statistics. There is a lack of common factors everywhere, and we are facing the challenge how to integrate these are the things. Besides that, there is a difficulty in measuring the official statistic data, merging the official statistic data with the CGD data. So we are just starting this work. We have to so far not prepared any that framework also. So how we can suggest us India can move forward to integrate the CGD. First, it is difficult to collect in India right now, and how it can be integrated to the official statistics.
I wouldn't know the answer. I wish I knew the answer, but honest truth is I don't know the answer. And probably if you allow, we meet with you, we figure out. But sorry, I don't have the answer, and I'll acknowledge it. That answer is not here, but we can work with you if.
Thank you, sir. First of all, compliments to Professor Mukhopadhyay. Very good pioneering initiative. So my thing is how to take it forward. That is the nightlife data which you are having and this thing. In the conventional, say, GDP estimates or this thing, what are your suggestions? Whether these can be used only as a proxy indicators or something, or just to seek the validation. For example, you have gone up to the village level even, sub-district level and all. So can it be used to see whether which districts or which states have the districts which are more evenly their income is spread out or something like that, more equitable states, and where states where there is more disparity with 1 or 2 larger metro cities having all the prosperity and not spread out. So how to take it forward? That is my question.
So thank you, sir. That's a wonderful question, because one you're talking about, how to, the validation of the nightlight data, so how reliable it is. For that, we will have to do some pilot, and that's where we need to partner. Like, I don't have an access to the ground level data, but we have an access to how to, validate the ground data with the pilot, with the deliberated one. Second, the regional disparity, and that's one of the very key things. So with our students, there was one particular project which we are doing, figuring out that if you look at the administrative boundaries, all the sub-districts or villages which are located near the state boundaries, are they more prosperous than which are away? Basically, we are looking at that, if a village is on the either side of a state boundary, is it being able to take the advantage of certain things across the state boundaries? And there are certain things which are basically the state level, so they will not be able to, like schooling system. So we actually can get a very granular level within a state, within a district. So first, are some areas more prosperous? Again, night light or any of these are a good indication because you can find the clusters. And secondly, can we attribute reasons that how much of an administrative boundary is, I won't say hindering progress, but what role does it play? So we can do actually very granular level. And once this kind of work is done, I will be happy to share that what is the finding, but we're trying to do that, basically trying to find out on the state boundaries, the localities, are they more prosperous than the other? But yes, we should be able to do something like that.
Anybody else from non-MSPI?
Good morning. This has been a fascinating session, and it's amazing to see the government actually moving forward on so many different fronts. I'm just curious about this conversation that's happening right now. And you're looking at, let's say, GDI, I notice, is a sort of, your website, I'm not really sure how you're structured, but seem to have a large number of agencies. And I'm just wondering whether one, as a structural thing, do you facilitate coordination between your various partners in some sense? So, for example, when we're talking about validation of nightlights, Papadito, the first simple stuff would be to actually just correlate. Mr. Garg mentioned electricity data. I think by now, almost, if the Ministry of Power, I don't know if there's anybody here, almost all distribution transformers are both geocoded, and you also have smart metered. So you know exactly by location what electricity consumption is. And in most places in this country now, Tamil Nadu, where you are based, it's usually 24/7 for consumer structures and so on and so forth. So if you're looking at variances, and there are issues, obviously, as was mentioned, but cross-correlating that with administrative data like electric consumption, which is at the DT level, there may be issues at the metering, the consumer metering level, because of varieties of issues that we know in electricity systems, would be the first step. Now, and that is something that presumably could be coordinated within the government itself, with them sort of moving forward. And obviously, they can bring people like you in. And I'm just wondering whether these kinds of conversations which are possible within government. We're talking about tourism, and there was some skepticism raised about structures. You have mobile data on what movement is. You have transport data on what movement is. Do those things reinforce each other? I'm just wondering whether these kinds of conversations are happening within government. Now, outside government, etc., is of course complicated, but just within this thing happening.
So maybe I'll take that, and I'll just want to address one other issue also. I think we need to recognize that there are limitations and strengths of each of the data that we're talking about, and there are also issues of stock and flow, stock of being calculating at one time and what's the changes. So, for example, some of these alternate data might help us to give flow, or what the changes that are happening. It may be difficult to calculate, as for tourism, the exact number of people coming in. But let's say if we do an analysis, or we do a physical count on year one, and then we do another physical count, let's say 5 years later, in between, many of this data can help us, give us some approximation of the growth rates or the changes that are happening. And that's why I don't think we are reached a stage, and in fact, that's why we are calling it a brainstorming. If we had the answers, we wouldn't have needed a brainstorming. The fact remains that we are still at a stage of experimentation of what kind of data and where it can be used and how it can be used. For example, I'm just giving another example of GDP of, let's say, a district. And if the nightlight data is X and the illumination is X plus whatever, 10 or 2X after 1 year, and have some discounting factor for LED lights replacing sodium lights, etc., it will give you some approximations. And I think we need to recognize the limitation of each kind of data that we have, But at the same time, whatever data we are using at that particular point in time doesn't mean that is perfect. I'm sure that will also have its own limitations. So I'll just put it out there because there's obviously there should be healthy skepticism whenever we're going to change. Your point on the internal discussions, I think these are the kind of forum that we are now using so that each ministry starts thinking of what can be done to have more real-time data, and I think that's what these alternate data give. Otherwise, we have periodic data, we have with time lags and all, and how we can get more real-time data. I think that's what we are hoping that these conversations will continue as we move forward. I'll stop here at this.
Any last question if any non-MOSP person is having, otherwise we can conclude the session. Okay. Thank you to all participants and especially the panelists. Shri Gaur from Survey of India, he has presented and told that how this geospatial data can be linked to the statistical data to give more insight. And this we are already doing in some cases, and we have to again explore the more areas where we can use it present basic way. Then Mr. Wambile from World Bank, he has also presented about mobile data, scanner data, how it can be used, and we are further going to have a detailed discussion on this in the month of May. We have planned already. 2-day workshop will be there, and most of us will be again meeting there. Yeah, thanks for sharing these use cases somewhere, and I think there are again scope for it on working on it. We will discuss on that workshop. Professor Bapaditya has also presented how the satellite data and night data can be used for this poverty estimation. I will not say, but showing the trends and soil moisture, etc. And again, Mr. Bansal from GDI for giving explaining how the other countries are also using the data and where they are on these aspects. So lastly, I will say this: we have to got the inputs from other questions also and other participants what they have given, and this will be extremely useful for us and charting out the future path in the direction and working on it. And they have also presented what are the challenges we are having, what are the strength it is having, and we have to look into that challenges, strength, and the way forward we have to decide, and that we work out collectively further. One more thing, I am just looking into the different presentation and question. This looks like that there are various duplications, means different agencies are doing the same thing again and again, and but a different way. So like chairman also said earlier, we need to coordinate these efforts so that we can have the best use of their capabilities and the resources variously we are having. So somewhere we have to create some coordination for the particular topics or subjects somewhere, and again use the whatever infrastructure available in an optimal way. So here I will say thank you to the panelists and to the participants. Thanks.
With that, we wrap up the first technical session and go on to the second and final session for the day. The panelists for the second session are Srimati Tanushree Dev Burma ma'am. Ma'am is the Deputy Director General, Unique Identification Authority of India, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Ma'am is a 2006 batch IAS officer managing Aadhaar's technology solutions. Ma'am is an IIT B.Tech graduate in electrical engineering. The second panelist, Shri Srinivasa Rao Sitiraju sir, is working in Bhuvan Geoportal and Web Services area of National Remote Sensing Center, ISRO. Sir is a geospatial expert and has 34 years of experience in leveraging geospatial technology for natural resource management and web-based data dissemination. Sir holds a PhD in Land Information Systems and has led key projects like India WRIS and Carto DEM. The third panelist is Professor Saurabh sir. Sir is Professor of Statistics and Data Science, Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. Sir is well known in the field of statistics and data science Sir has earned MSc and PhD in mathematical statistics from the University of Lucknow, with postdoctoral from the University of Pittsburgh and the University of Munich, where he developed his expertise in statistical methodologies. The fourth panelist is Dr. Karan Nagpal Sir, India Regional Director, ID Insight, New Delhi, India. ID Insight is a research consulting organization that works with governments and civil society organizations to help them use data and evidence when making decisions. Sir has a PhD in economics from the University of Oxford. The moderator for this session is Srimati Geeta Singh Rathore Ma'am, Director General, National Sample Survey. A 1992 batch ISS officer, Ma'am has vast experience and has served in various divisions of MOSPI like National Accounts Division, Survey Design and Research Division. Ma'am has also served in Ministry of Corporate Affairs. I now request Ma'am to kindly moderate the second technical session. I hand over the floor to DG Ma'am. Ma'am, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. In this session, we have a panel of experts who bring expertise and diverse perspective from government, space technology, academia, and data analytics on non-conventional data. So now I request Ms. Tanushri to kindly proceed with your presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. So when we started working on this presentation, I had a little briefing from the DDG here, and it just fell right across our alley. And we talked about within our teams that all the work that UIDAI is doing to make sure that the data that we generate on a regular basis is not just being used for UIDAI's internal purposes, but also we are now taking steps to democratize that data, and the value of the data can be unleashed if it is provided in the public domain. And this presentation will, segue into the discussions that we've had so far and how we are culminating into democratizing the same data. So the presentation is formalized around the UIDAI story, the what, why, and hows of how we enable data enablement for especially non-conventional data, and the way forward in making this a reality. So just an introduction to the Aadhaar ecosystem. Many of us do have Aadhaar, but we still don't know the basic facts sometimes. I myself did not know before I joined Aadhaar 3 years back that Aadhaar is a very minimalistic data collection platform, and we collect data only to the extent that we can deduplicate you based on the biometrics that we collect and have an address assigned to that ID so that the iCard can reach to a place of preference of the individual. We also collect mobile information, which is non-mandatory, but if it is given, it gives a lot of service ease to the resident, and we collect the email address in addition, which is also part of the demographic data. While this is getting collected, there is a lot of other information over time that we have been able to collect, which is non-PII, not personal identifiable information. The kind of scanner that you scanned your biometrics on, the device on which the client was working, was it what kind, what version was it, what were the security measures implemented on it, and so much other data like the GPS coordinates, that the location at which the enrollment took place. So we'll talk more about that. So the conventional side, we are collecting the information that is required. But on the non-conventional side, the nitty-gritties of what happened in that transaction, where it happened, what were the components, which buttons were clicked, were there any additional buttons clicked which were not expected to be clicked. All these informations together can give us a lot of holistic information which can help in fraud analytics, which can help in understanding how the country is enrolling, etc. how do we ensure biometrics, I came to know, was classified as of now, if you look up, is considered as non-conventional data. But for Aadhaar, it is the most conventional it can get. It is based on biometrics. But at the same time, because as a government, we have taken up this work of doing dedupe based on biometrics and taking biometrics as the identifier for an individual, it absolves many other organizations to not to have that deduplication required. So if a government organization wants to deduplicate its beneficiaries, which has happened over the years, they don't need to collect the biometrics again, and they can rely on Aadhaar's authentication and linking of a identity to do the same thing. So how this unconventional data was used in India is a true example for many other countries to emulate. In terms of data, I think I could not have missed this slide. We have covered so many crores of authentications post our enrollments, right? So 14,000 crores, that's the imagination factor of how many times people use Aadhaar for proving their identity. With a base of 141 crore population already covered, we still do 74,000 enrollments a day. We have 7 lakh updates happening, let it be people trying to change their mobile number, trying to change their email address, trying to change their address locations, trying to change minor modifications in their names or date of birth. And all these updates together can give us a lot of insight. For example, how is the country doing migration? Where are the addresses changing from here to there? Why is it that some names are more difficult than the others to change? We saw Maharashtra is one difficult state for us, where people find much difficulty in changing their names. Is there any insight into that? And other such information. Of course, the authentication data has different types of authentication. Some people have to use biometric authentication. It can be an OTP authentication. It can be an eKYC authentication. We know authentication, which organizations are doing it. That can also give us so much insight into how and on what purposes the authentication is happening, can give aggregate data on many of the financial inclusion factors that the country would like to monitor for many policy decisions. I will again just delve on the numbers, but basically trying to rub it in that the data that UIDAI has is immense in terms of its potential for being used, and we are so close, it's a very low hanging fruit to be able to be utilized for the public policy making. I really like this quote and I wanted to have it right there. So, I think governments, it's high time in this esteemed gathering, and I think very well placed also, that if organizations who are creating data and the organizations who are consuming data are not shaking hands, then we'll not get much far away, because everything is now data. And any commercial organization will tell you this, but in government organization, I've still seen people doing long behest sessions on how, their anecdotal data is going to get you some information, but show me the data and we'll make the policy after that. So the presentation talks about what, and I think Professor Shalabh talked about it. The problem should be, what do you want to solve as an organization? So once you identify the problems, then is when the data becomes important. And what data sets do you have already with you? And then what are the other data sets which are available with your sister organizations, or like non-conventional data sets, which can be utilized, which can be purchased, or which can be even exchanged, so that there's a win-win for the other organizations. In terms of why, like they said, we climbed the Everest because it was out there, but at the same time, we cannot, I think it's absolutely essential that we go away from qualitative information to quantitative information. And how, I think that's the major part. What are the tools that are available with us, how UIDAI is utilizing them, and where is the talent quotient, how to bring it together to make sure that we can make this data available. So here we are talking about the non-conventional or the conventional data sets on the left and the non-conventional on the right. Enrollment update data is very conventional to us. I mean,
this is our bread and butter, कितने दिन के enrollment हुए, कितने update हुए, कितने लोगों ने authentication किया, that's very critical. But at the same time, like I said, the stock and flow, sir also talked about it. Over time, how do the enrollment updates change? Which are the lean periods? Which are the hefty periods? We've seen that before exams, people just come for biometric updates. So why is it that that information we've seen over the years, and why can't we, spread that knowledge across? कि exam से पहले मत आओ, do it throughout the year so there's no load on the system, and we use that as an indicator for information spreading, that this is the time where you will need your bio update, but I am telling you in advance that you will need it during this time. So we spread the information across, and people can be allowed to, do their biometric updates on time. I'll show you how we manage stock and flow subsequently for even management of our inventory, if you may call it. Every new enrollment and update is like a piece of information I need to move through my system of various validations and ensure at the end of the day I can approve or reject that Aadhaar update or enrollment. While we are doing that, if we don't do stock and flow understanding, then small bugs into the system will just go unnoticed, and stock and flow show us, okay, this day we release something and we see that 1 month from now there is some change in the number of packets that got held up into the system. So what did you release on that day which is causing me this aging parameter changes? We'll show that. Similar things in authentication. Conventional side, we check numbers, who has done, what kind of enrollment authentications have been done. But on the unconventional side, why is it that a person in one flow is trying to authenticate with an SBI, then he's trying to immediately try to do with a Canara Bank, and immediately after trying to do with another bank, and immediately trying to do with another bank, with success or failure? And when we see these trends that are happening, earlier they did not, we were not aware that these were anomalies which can lead to fraud detection. But now when we correlate the NPCI complaints on use of gummy fingers, for example, we see that these could have been caught much ahead had we understood that this anomaly is, this could be, an indicator of a fraud detection. So it's only over the last few years that we've understood the importance of such data collection, analytics, as well as anomaly detection. And again, on the CRM front, the complaints that come in for all of us through Aadhaar, we closely monitor it, not just in terms of numbers and categories, but also in terms of the timing at which it is coming, the reasons for which they are coming, and try and use that tool to better the system in terms of reducing the reasons for which people get affected adversely for the Aadhaar services. This graph is one of my favorites. It shows over the last 12 years how, first the yellow graph shows how the enrollment increased, and now it is reduced because we have covered almost 99% of the population. And then the requirements of updates increase. People, they migrate, they change, and now the blue increases, and the last is an anomaly because it's the last month, so it's still not complete. So this is how the transition happens over identity ecosystem. We monitor the authentication eKYC trends and give us clear indications of what is happening in the ecosystem. But in terms of other non-conventional data sets, the analytics data we capture during the enrollments, like I said, one transaction of enrollment, we can actually capture 1,000 data points, and we do. And at the back end, now I'm sitting on all this data, and there is so much we can do. We are already finding out so many new information that we were not privy to earlier. Similarly, 150 plus attributes while you are authenticating yourself. All this information is not private information per se, but it can be handled as a very anonymized aggregated data and still help us get very clear indications of action points. The process logs, even in my system, which server is doing what, where is it failing, what are the vulnerabilities that I'm seeing in the system. All this data can help us do better management at the back end, system logs inclusive. Another thing was outbound calls. So we do specific outbound calls based on complaints that come to us. If somebody has complained that somebody overcharged, some operator overcharged. Now that one complaint cannot lead me to take action, but subsequent 100 calls made to all the service provided to the other residents can give me a clear indication of other people also complain. Now we have done a recent improvement to that. We are involving chatbots or AI agents to call. So therefore, our capability to making these calls in real time, immediate complaints can be converted into a deterrence for such overcharging by the operators. And biometrics, of course, doing better analysis. We have understood over the years how biometrics change for people. So as people grow, the finger biometrics gets deteriorated and the match rates are not so great. This information was probably not available to any country in the world, but now that we have this information, we are now using face authentication as a proxy for those people who have a finger deterioration, and this information would not have been, had we not analyzed it, and therefore the research in biometrics has also helped us. So I wanted to talk about the stock and flow analysis. This is one of the stages in which the packet is getting processed, and we are monitoring packets which are 7 days old, packets, that is the application of enrollment or an update, which are 7 to 30 days old, something which is more than 30 days, something which is more than 90 days old. That kind of gives us an indication of what's happening, what is getting aged, what is not getting aged, and our system moving through this, packets are moving through the system. This is again one of my graphs which we see there are two humps in this system. So the online services that are taken by the residents, we see a morning peak 11 to 12, and then they go for lunch, then they come back post lunch, and there is a peak again. But the moment we see that these services are getting gamed by a computer system, we don't see these peaks. It's like constant flow, and all those things are used by our IS, that is our information security wing, to make sure that there are anomalies that are happening, and we then make checks to the system. And so this is again, we can't probably theorize till we have data, and that's the criticality, and what better answer than the why. But besides doing our own job, I think all this data is very critical for doing policy making, ensuring that the parties that we work with, ministries, etc., have this information available to them to take better decisions. And coming to how we are doing it, we are making sure we are capturing it, storing, and making it available for analysis. We are how we train our teams to use it. We ensure that they are able to make these connections across data, and ensure that we are using latest technologies, and we are ensuring it's available across the board. And at the same time, access control is important, where you identify data as sensitive. And like Chairman Sir mentioned, that using AI-based analysis, leveraging that for doing the same. I'll not go into this slide, just go into, this is the data architecture. We are using state-of-the-art technology to capture the data, to clean it up, to store it in a very highly available information database, and then visualization through the latest tools so that our teams can work on this. This is for our internal teams. But at the external teams also, something like Superset and Metabase enables us to use this. We also have public dashboards. So if you go to UIDAI's website, at the bottom you have these dashboards which talk about how saturation data is available, CSV files are downloadable, authentication data, device data, how devices work across various use cases. And recently we took this policy initiative to create a think tank which enables renowned people from academia, industry, and other organizational partners to work with us to make a data policy and to enable that this data is now available to such channels who can then make more sense out of this data and bring it together. The way forward is that in UIDAI itself, we have so many users and they're all data hungry, including myself. And it's very easy to get lost in data analysis. At the same time, if we keep a sharp focus on what exactly we need, there'll be better use of data. And there is this, the people who have domain knowledge don't have expertise on data. People who have data knowledge don't have. So there's a lot of difficulty in bringing these two teams together. I think there is minimal information requirement and training required for data domain people so that they can talk the language with data engineers and data science people. And of course, ensure we have high compute, high storage. UIDAI, it has been easy, but government organizations, I know it'll need a lot of hand-holding to have that. Including ensuring that the data collected serves various functions for simple number modeling as well as for complex data training. So in UIDAI, during Sir's tenure, we set up the data science workbench. So biometric data cannot be shared like this. But if we create clean rooms in which we keep the biometric data which is not accessible, it is completely anonymized, that enables my data scientists to create models and train their models without having to touch and feel and be able to steal that data. So such clean rooms are the need of the hour wherever PII or personal identifiable information becomes important. So making these tools, making such sandboxes available in organizations is very critical. And ensuring we are technology proofing ourselves. The technology enables us, at the same time ties us down to something which may be a vendor lock-in, which may be preventing me from using my data in the future. That we have to ensure, and I think encouraging cross-organization analysis, which is the way forward, I guess. I think data is unconventional till we decide not to make it unconventional. If we use it enough, it won't be unconventional anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanushri. Sharing the whys, what and how of the success story of the UIDAI and the socio-economic value of the Aadhaar-related data. Your presentation has shown the vast use of Aadhaar data, hoping that this data will be available and utilized widely. Now I invite Shri Siti Raju from NRSC for giving his presentation. Please.
Good afternoon. Myself, Dr. S.S. Rao, representing NRSC, ISRO from Hyderabad. I thank MOSP for giving this opportunity to present on this one. And we belong to that geospatial data and products for official statistics. So one way when we are mentioning that geospatial data is unconventional. So for last 30 years, we are working in this field. We are generating so many products and services. Many departments adopted this technology, and this is the primary source of this thing, and putting us in unconventional. Maybe we'll discuss. That's maybe the brainstorming session. Next one. Next slide. Yeah, I think Madam has concluded her presentation thinking about the policy. And now I start my presentation with the policy. Last 2-3 years, one is the National Geospatial Policy has come into picture, and the Space Policy also has come into picture. What are the significant outcome, or what the main aim of these two policies is? As part of the Geospatial Policy, I think now we have to develop, many organizations are developing a lot of databases. Now it is for all the departments to share the database with all the stakeholders. Sharing is more important. So as part of this, I think the Department of Space has given 4 objectives. One is the orthoimagery. That means whatever the different resolutions satellite data is acquired, that has to be made available to all the stakeholders free of cost. That one is one thing. Second thing is then land use land cover map. That's what we are going to discuss today. And third one is the space infrastructure and the navigation information. That's the one thing. Second one is the space policy, where in which it specifies that I think right now we are at the 2% of the global space economy with $8 billion. Maybe in a decade time we have to grow up to 10% with $40 billion. With that objective, it has been space sector has been liberalized, and many private entities have been encouraged to launch and to become part of this the space sector, and a lot of developments are happening. I think that's going to be realized very soon. Next. No, there are two portals, what you say, one is the Bhunidhi and Bhuvan portal. The Bhunidhi is one portal to cater to the satellite data. So that means right now we have a number of satellites and we are providing the various regional satellite data free of cost to the stakeholders, and through this Bhunidhi portal a government department up to 5 meter resolution data is free. They can download free of cost, and all the users, and government departments better than 5 meters also data is free. And private sector, they have to buy the data through this portal. The two modules are there. One is you can visualize and download the data free of cost. Second one, you can also purchase the data through this portal. That is the basic purpose of Bhunidhi. Next one. Next. Now when you say the Bhuvan, I think Bhuvan contains a lot of data, and what we do is we generate countrywide mosaics. Basically, that means we have the AWIPS data, advanced wide field sensor with a 50-meter resolution, catering to the requirements of the government, the country as a whole. Then we have the list 3 25-meter representing the state as at that particular scale. Then we have the 5-meter data, Cartosat 2.5 meter data, and 1 meter data. And right now we are having more than 25 petabytes of data at NRSA Hyderabad. It is easy for the users to download or use the data sets, and these data sets are being generated with accurately. In a sense, we do all, because most of the time whenever you say secondary data, what is the authentication and other things, we collected around 12,000 ground control points using the GPS coordinates in a differential GPS mode, and using those data sets we register all the satellite data starting from 50 meter to the 50 centimeter data. They are co-registered, so that means the accuracy is no more that means is ensured. That's one thing. And we have on this Bhuvan portal we do have approximately 123 plus layers of data starting from the different resolution. This is the data set. Every year we are generating 14 countrywide mosaics, 6 maybe 12 are approximately the optical data, and 12 are microwave data also being provided. Next one. This is, we can see, I think this is the 30 centimeter, maybe a 1 meter resolution data. The top left is the maybe 19 to 21. 3 years we acquired approximately 60% of the country, and because as the resolution increases, we have number of satellites are less. So even 3 years we are unable to complete the entire country. Second one is that last 3 years, 20 to 24, and combined together around 85 to 90% of the country is covered at the large scale. This is where we can say maybe private entities are coming to picture. They have the submitted data sets. So both combined together we can generate. So at that resolution, maybe at 50-meter resolution, maybe every 12 days we can have one data set. But when talk about the submitted data sets, maybe yearly one product may be arriving at. That is the range. And how the next, okay. So when you take this, people are talking about the sensors or various data collection, other things. We are also involved in NR sensors. This started almost maybe 15 years back, and we concentrated on 7 layers. One is that land use land cover, and second one is the soil, and the third one is the geology, geomorphology and groundwater prospects, and the fourth one is the vegetation, addressing the forest area, and the snow and glaciers inventory. Every yearly inventory is being done. Then land degradation, wasteland mapping, every 5 years we do the mapping, and the wetlands also mapping. And in addition to this one, India has more than 1 hectare area, 16 lakh water bodies. Every 15 days we are generating what is the volume of the area spread in these 16 lakh water bodies, so that we can know whether what is the impact of the rainfall, how much water is available, and other things. In addition to this, we also have a lot of, we have interacted with various ministries. We also collected a lot of point information like NREGA, whatever the assets that have been created using the government funds, the geospatial evidence is available. So like this Housing for All or various projects, I will explain in detail. Next one. Next one. Now this is the slide. I think this is the core of the Bhuvan strength, whereas the Bhuvan thematic resources. When we have the land is land cover. This we are doing at the 4 scales. One is to 250,000 scale. Every year we are generating this product using the AWIPS data. And one is 50,000 scale. Every 3 to 5 years we are preparing. And at 1:10,000 scale, every 10 years we are preparing that one. And the urban land use around 500 towns are also we are covered. So a lot of systematic data has been prepared. When you see the land use land cover, sometimes I feel we have the government authenticated land use inventory at village level prepared in 1948. That is a 9-fold classification system. Still that has not been updated or modified. But now we have generated the 9 classes to the 1:1 million scale, 8 classes, 23 classes, and 53, and at 1:10,000 scale, 80 classes are being generated regularly. Unfortunately, this has not been adopted. So, but the data is generated, but we also follow maybe using this classification, accuracy assessment, preparation, other things. I think geospatial technology is the first one to adopt the AML techniques, machine learning algorithms, start almost 3 decades back. Although we are improved now, I think this one, random forest and all other new algorithms are all generating. The other additional features are being extracted using the state-of-art AML processing and other things. But you're generating this map, that means we also adopt the this 90 by 90 with 90% accuracy, minimum 90% accuracy, 90% confidence level we are generating. And similarly, the other data sets, soil, slope, and we also generated a digital elevation model using the Cartosat 1 stereo, one of the best 3D satellite. At each 2.5 meter distance, we have one elevation point. So that can be used in a better way also. Next one. And I think this I would like to highlight maybe in 2015, Honorable Prime Minister has shared a session how the geospatial technology can be used by various ministries. Around 40 ministries have started adopting this technology, and 8 secretaries have presented. Around 160 projects have been conceived from 2015, and 5 years they have completed these projects. And this year, we are 2025 also, we are going to have a second national meet in which the geospatial technology can be adopted by various users. That map second, whatever you are seeing, that is prepared 1:10,000 scale. So when you say 1:10,000 scale means, although we use the Cartosat series data set, maybe we take the village as a one unit. Within that, how we prepare, how much built up is there, what is that road network, that maybe not only the national highway, state highway and other things, even footpaths, car tracks, to that extent. Whichever is having more than 1 meter width, a polygon is formed and the data has been generated. And this has been, I think, the 2 cycles have been completed. A few months back, Honorable Minister has released this product to the country. And this is freely available, countrywide. Whatever maps I am showing, they are freely available through Bhuvan portal, anybody can download. Next one. And if you see that the right side bottom map, how many people have downloaded this data? So when you see the portal is ready, now the first thing we do is download, okay? And this not only data, satellite data sets, even that land products also have been generated globally also, and these are all available. And many people are using this data for various applications. Next one. And this is another, this is the land degradation map. I think at 1:50,000 has been prepared at 2 scales and provided to Niti Aayog and other thing. Next one. This is the wasteland map, and the 2 cycles map has been prepared and provided to Niti Aayog. And using this one, they also prepared a concept called GROW, greening of the wasteland areas. Okay, and using this not only the wasteland boundaries and what is the soil, slope, groundwater conditions, what should be the land resource potential, the land resource development plan has been prepared, and they are being implemented across the states. Next one. And this is the another map I am unable to see. This is the Kharif crop grown area. That means now we have multiple optical and micro data, and how much is the area, the Kharif sown area has been prepared. Next one. These are all another, the Kharif rice map India. So that means in Kharif season, even not only that a general land use land cover, even the crop wise mapping also inventory has been done. This is the right one. And middle one is the wheat crop area, and third one is the sugar cane crop area. So that means a lot of maturity has happened, and for last 3 decades we also follow so much of quality standards, and the mapping have been prepared to standards we call we have NSDA, National Spatial Data Interface. Various stakeholders are there. We also have the standards arrived at NSDA standards. According to the standards, these maps have been prepared. Next one. This is what I think NTL, nighttime lights. I think a lot of discussions happening since morning. Niti Aayog approached us to help in processing, and we took interest and we have processed this data. And countrywide mosaic has been generated for a decade. Annual data has been prepared, and over a period of time, top right curve you can see how the NTL intensity is increasing over a period of time, 10 years. I think that there is a slight dip is there. The dip is indicated during the COVID time. There was a dip, and immediately afterwards the restored back. And the second diagram is basically we also collected a lot of the GDP data, and we tried to correlate the GDP vis-a-vis this NTL data, and we got a good correlation. That graph is indicating approximately maybe 0.8 R square around 0.8 or 0.9. Okay. Next one. Similarly, we also have, I think, surprisingly, during the last decade, maybe you can say 13 to 22 or 23, Bihar has a lot of NTL values have increased more. That is the state where more growth has happened. Maybe all Tamil Nadu, other things already they are having, but the last decadal growth, I think, Bihar is having the maximum statistically. And we also try to correlate the bottom left image, what is the electricity consumption vis-a-vis the NTL. So this may be a preliminary result, but some efforts has been done relating the NTL with the electricity consumption and the GDP things. Next one. And as I mentioned, I think we have done a lot of the one good thing has happened last 1 decade, sir. There's whatever the natural resources interventions have happened where money is funding, the geospatial evidences are being created. The person specific Aadhaar and all other things are there. Natural resources also. That means how these are working. I have mentioned here the 4 schemes, the NREGA scheme. There is an MIS within the department, concerned department, and the line departments, they go with the mobile and collect some ground truth information, and the geospatial data provide the geospatial evidence. These three are interlinked. So when you're talking about the what scale, what framework, all are the person, each pixel wise they are interlinked. So that means that day when Honorable Prime Minister was sharing was kind of word, person, parcel, pixel. I think that has been established. And I think India as a whole, during the last 3 decades, geospatial technology has a lot of matured. Many countries also coming forward to adopt this technology in other things. One is the Pradhan Mantri, the NREGA scheme. Second one is the housing for all. Even housing for all, also different stages where there's going to construct a house. Before that, one photograph they are taking, that location will come. Then a foundation level, another photograph. Then the lintel level. Then after completion, all these things, so that ground photographs are coming, and after creating asset on a satellite data, whether such an asset has been created or not, we can validate. So that way I think validation is also happening at that level. Next one. This is another mapping. Basically there are, I think, solar energy country is doing a lot of good work. Progress has been that where the large farms are there, more than 10 hectares area, where the solar farms are there, that we have inventory has been done. Now we are doing maybe more than 2 hectares. Very soon that is also going to come. Surprisingly, if you see that solar energy, the Rajasthan where the insulation is very high, potential is very high. But Telangana, the southern countries, states also coming more forward. So wherever the wastelands are there, this is becoming a good opportunity for the individual to earn annual income, and as well as the solar energy also. So that is, although the department has that inventory, but the spatial evidence are being captured using the AML techniques, this information. Next one. And another unique feature, sir, we have developed that is many people are talking about the KYC, know your customer or something. We also developed KYR, know your resources. You stand at a location, what is that administrative boundary information will come, elevation information will come, then what is the land use, soil, slope, groundwater, all those inventory, around 10 to 15 thematic layers have been integrated. And we can get it. So mobile application is also ready. I think that can be rolled out across the country. And if there is a parcel, one is the coastal boundary also, as I mentioned, within that area also how much that annual area aggregation is also happening. So to that extent, the spatial technology, and we also developed various portals and mobile applications to disseminate the technology to the ground. Next one. This is the, maybe I can quickly, this is the sensor data is also mentioned. We also have a lot of flux towers, and we have soil moisture probes. We also automatic weather station. We get the data and process and disseminate the information. Next one. And this is the one I think I would like to spend some time. This is the Bhuvan portal. I can say this is the portal of the Government of India, we can say. It all started 2009, I think last 16 years. I think to develop this portal, it basically consists of huge data sets, maybe as I mentioned, the natural resources data sets and disaster related data sets, flood, cyclones, forest fires, agriculture fires where they're happening, that information being done, and then the climate and disaster data set, and 231 million point of information where the developmental activity is happening. That is the combination of all these has been put into this Bhuvan portal. To create this portal, approximately, I think Government of India spent more than 5,000 crores. Where which even a government, so whatever the data is more authentic, whichever the point of different data collected by a government machinery. So that means approximately 5 lakh users are collecting the information to develop this portal. And we also, I think that now that as the policies, data is free, people can access the Bhuvan data and they can visualize and download the data sets as per the policy standards. Next one. And this is what the strength I mentioned. This is the 123 layers of the countrywide, and we have the admin, all layers are there, and the thematic 12 races as part of NR sensors. Climate and disasters, 100 plus products are available. And the geospatial applications, as I mentioned, 40 ministries and state governments all put to the 200 applications. I am happy to share that MOSP is also 2 applications we are running, sir. One is that urban frame survey. I think now they are everything is a digitalized urban frame survey is happening. Previously, we also carried out the construction volume estimation using the satellite technology. A pilot study has been carried out. Maybe that can think of national rollout. And even the Aadhaar also, if you want to identify which is the nearest location, Bhuvan portal is supporting, giving that support. Then we have the then mobile application 70 crowdsourcing points are there. Data science products also developed, and we also sharing these products through APIs and any way, whatever mode they want, we are supplying. Next one. And recently we have developed the Bhuvan Next Gen. I think it has more user friendly and more. We have, as I mentioned, 200 applications are there. We categorize them into some urban, rural, agriculture, water sector, all those things, so that easy to find the application and to use this. With this, I thank the organizers for giving the opportunity.
I thank you, Dr. Siti Raju, for highlighting the transformative role of geospatial technology, especially of Bhunidhi and Bhuvan portal in governance and data development, and the platform's advancement in real-time data analytics, and sharing the examples of how this technology has improved planning and climate changes and resilience. Thank you very much. Now I invite Professor Saurabh to kindly give his presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much. It is always a pleasure to be here in MOSP. Possibly this is the only ministry where I have maximum number of friends, colleagues, and my students. So it's always coming back to my family. Okay, I think all the presentation were quite eye-opening. And based on the same line, thank Shri for creating a background for my presentation. So I'm just going to talk about a very simple thing. Being a teacher, being a professor, I have a different perspective than an administrator. But now I'm trying to combine both of them together. And as she said, as Shri said very correctly, that we have data, but we don't know, one party doesn't know how to use it, and other party has tools, but they don't know, but they don't have the data. So I will just try to illustrate here a very simple example which we developed for the Government of India. And I would like to show that how the data can be defined and how that can be viewed in a very different way, and how it can be translated to the requirements of MOSIP. Right, so if you try to see, we have been taught right from the beginning that data is quantitative or qualitative, and the numerical values represents its magnitudes. Now I have a very different perspective because that was defined in my project. Can we treat the statements and sentences as data resources? And the sentiments which are hidden inside the statements can help to determine the magnitude as a data? That was a problem which I encountered a couple of years back when Ministry of Defense and DRPG invited us, because they have a CPGrams portal. All the government ministries are well aware of the CPGrams portal where people from the country can lodge their grievances. And there are usual ways that, okay, those grievances are addressed in some way. So their objective was that they want to use the information which is hidden inside those grievances, and they want to implement in the e-governance. That was a very simple objective, and at that time I was completely unaware of this terminology like CPGrams, grievances, etc. But then we started working on this. So I have just taken a screenshot of a real grievance, and if you try to see, it is telling you that somebody has made a complaint that there is somebody in the CSD canteen and who is trying to sell the CSD canteen goods outside the cantonment in some open market. And then they are trying to give the details who are doing it, and that's all. After that, they are silent. This is the real screenshot of the grievance. So then the question was, what type of this single grievance can tell the administrators? And can the data contained in such grievances be considered as an alternative data resource? And if this type of information is available, what type of help can be given to the government after analyzing it, and then how to analyze the data? Every grievance can be treated as a data point. And if I see the record, the number of public grievances in 2014 was about 2 lakhs, and now in 2024 it is about 22 to 23 lakhs per year. So this is the number of data points which we are generating every year. Then that is a very good example of the public-centric data, citizen-centric data. Right, so if you try to look at this data, which is this grievance now, what it is trying to tell us about? Is it making a statement about the CSD? Or it is making a statement about selling the CSD goods outside? Or it is about misusing the canteen card? Or it's a sort of corruption? And there can be many more things. And if this type of complaints are increasing over a period of short time, then what is this indicating to an administrator, and what type of policy implications can be taken to stop this type of grievances and complaints, which in turn will improve the governance? If you try to see, up to now, these complaints were routed manually. The grievance comes, somebody will read it, and then they will try to forward it to a concerned ministry. Concerned ministry will send it to its concerned officer, and so on. And it takes a very long time till the grievance reaches to the right person who is going to address it. Even addressing, there was a problem, whether they want to dispose of or they want to solve the problem. They want to address it. That was another issue. So now this was the 19th century information processing system, that all the grievances, they are read manually and then so on. But now in the 21st century, what we did, we made a digital transformation. All these grievances, they are coming in different formats. They are coming in the formats of PDF file, JPEG file, text, etc. And now, when we try to digitalize it, okay, then we can make a keyword-based search. But for example, in this earlier complaint, it is nowhere talking about corruption, but using our cognitive capabilities, we can decide that it's a corruption. So my idea is that when, as an administrator, I want to search out of 20,000 or grievances coming every day, that is there any grievance related to the corruption? With the keyword search based, it will not crop up. But then we developed an artificial intelligence based system which is trying to understand the sentiments of the grievances, and it is enabling the semantic search. Although now the semantic search has become quite common because of ChatGPT and Google Gemini, but 4 years, 5 years back, it was not even existing. But anyway, so that was the story. So in this system, what we have done, that all the grievances, they are entering into the system, and they are being analyzed using our developed AI analyzer, and this analyzer identifies the gist of the grievances and it classifies them into different groups. Now, whenever we want to have a query, like officials asking for bribes for issuing certificates, then it will try to identify the gist and it will try to select the grievances which are related to these questions. So now the administrator has an advantage that whatever issue they want to see, they can identify the grievances. And it's not only that. When if I try to see you here, this is a sort of portal which looks like. So what is happening, that as soon as a grievance comes, then depending on your definition or automatic also, both are now possible, the grievance will be automatically classified into one of the bin. The bins can be defined by the preferences of the ministries, that, okay, if a person is not getting a pension for the last 6 months, this complaints or this grievance is more important than somebody's house is not being cleaned for the last 2 days. So this type of job was to be done manually, but now it is being done automatically, and the advantage is that any officer, instead of looking into 2,000 complaints every day and then digging out that, okay, these 4 are important, these 4 grievances are getting classified automatically. And now we have developed the capability that as soon as there are more number of grievances, there will be automatically a category can be created. For example, if currently there is a war between, say, Israel and other places, or say Ukraine and Russia. So many people start giving the grievances, complain that they are getting affected. So automatically bin can be created. So this is what we had developed. Can you make the next slide? Yeah. So, and then you see, in this process, we have purely used a statistical tool which are based on AI and machine learning only. And the advantage is that frivolous grievances are identified, repeated grievances are identified. To your surprise, there was one couple which was sending almost 500 same grievances every day. And people try to create a bulk campaign against someone by using such this type of grievances. So they were identified, and finally the efforts of GROs were reduced by 20 to 25%, and the resolution time in 2019, which used to be 28 days, now it has reduced to 13 days only. And it is not only the time to dispose of the grievance, but it is the time to address the grievance with some solution. In fact, as a Dean of Academic Affairs at IIT Kanpur, I get the complaints of my students that, okay, this institute is not giving me degree, they are forcing me to do some courses, then they will give the degree. So that is how I said, okay, this system is working. And now this system is working in several ministries. So that's the good part. And you see, I am just giving here some examples of the grievances which come. They are nowhere using any word like as corruption, but in one grievance, it is trying to say that somebody has created an illegal police chowki, somebody is trying to indicate the use of, misuse of CSD canteen. Third grievance is delay in joining, and if you try to see, this is written in the Hindi language, typed in English. So this portal is now capable of handling different languages like Bengali, etc., etc. Besides this, based on this data, now considering the grievance as a data and the sentiments as its value, we have plotted those grievances on the map of India. The size of the circle is indicating that how many grievances are getting originated from that part of the country, and the color of the
circle is indicating the degree of seriousness. For example, if the color become more towards red, then that means that there is some problem which is more serious and it requires immediate attention. So as an administrator, if this type of dashboard is before your computer, so if you just spend a couple of minutes, you will get an idea in the entire country if everything is fine or not. Now, as I said, all these procedures, they are based on pure statistical method like classification procedure, cluster analysis, etc., etc. And where the data is now identified as a grievance, and which is stated in the form of PDF, JPEG, text also, etc. And the value of the data is the sentiments of the text which is contained in it. Nobody has gone through it, only the AI analyzer has gone through it. And this technique is used to analyze the citizen-centric generated data. Now, my next question is, can it be used in the MOSIP surveys and other official statistics? That's an open question to you all, which I don't know the answer, because you can pose the question and then we can give you the solution. But I can tell you from my experience after working with these government ministries in the last 4 or 5 years, there are enormous opportunities. It depends only on you people who are working in the ministry to see the problem as an opportunity. And this thing can be done. For example, if I try to take here, I was told, I was talking to one of your officers and he said, yeah, in our surveys, when we ask the question, the respondent gives us the answer, and then we have to give different codes. So, for example, if I take an example, the response to a query is, my 45-year-old father is a school bus driver. Now, what type of information it is giving you? Age is 45 years, profession is driver, industry is education, manufacturer of vehicle is bus, and the respondent is son. And suppose if you want to give the profession as category 1, say PR1, and industry of education to be as IN2, then can AI ML techniques be used to assign these codes automatically to these answers? That will possibly save a lot of time. It's not only this. Right. If the surveyor is giving the responses in the form of audio files, can the audio files be analyzed automatically by the AI ML, and can the data and the relevant data can be stored in those variables? My answer is yes. Web-based data is available on different sites, and that is contributing a lot. For example, there was a discussion on using the proxy variable, Ministry of Tourism. We have made some experiments, and we can say, yes, using the proxy variable, we are getting the information on a real-time basis, which Secretary was asking. Right, there can always be a doubt on the transition. So as it was suggested that in the beginning, you can have both the surveys, both the techniques, and over a period of time when you compare and see that, okay, the web-based surveys or web-based data is also giving us a similar outcome, then over a period of time we can develop the confidence, and this in-person surveys can be ignored, or they can continue for some data validation from time to time, because internet is an internet, it is not a human being. Right, and if you try to use this, the micro-reasonable to national level insight in the data are possible on a real-time basis. AI-enhanced statistical calculation, which are delivered over the interactive dashboards on a real-time basis, they are possible. But what are the outcomes which you want? This is to be done only, because is to be told only by the ministry to us. Right, so now if I try to comprehend this discussion we have gone through before coming to this talk, this web-based statistics is rapidly growing, and it is taking over the traditional based survey. We have gone through that, different countries have started doing it, and the web-based statistics is much cheaper, much more granular and more dynamic than the traditional survey data. For example, the surveys are going to be conducted after 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, etc. And now if you want a real-time information, then the traditional surveys cannot give, but this web-based data can possibly give you. And one thing, yeah, we always try to, in the discussion, we are always trying to say, okay, US follows this thing, New Zealand follows this thing, Kenya follows this thing, so we should follow this thing. Why can't we create our own tools? I can see in the grievance,
We are the first one in the country who have created such a platform, and this platform is being taken over by the DRPG, by the Secretary Dr. Srinivas to other countries, and now they are following this platform. So this is how I look the future of the MOSPI. Yeah, I would request MOSPI should invest in expanding the development and the use of such, for example, web-based statistics in this country. We at IT Kanpur, we have developed some capabilities, and we will always be happy to help MOSPI. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor, for demonstrating the potential of using non-conventional data resources with AI and ML for official data, and using the intelligent grievance management system, an AI tool that categorizes and resolves public complaints more efficiently. Thank you. And now I invite Dr. Karan Nagpal to kindly give his presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. I think I am standing between all of you and lunch, so I will try to be fast. Dr. Garg, of course, started this by saying that MOSPI's tagline is data for development. We as an organization believe that data should be used for development, but often isn't. And so we try to diagnose always when we are working with our state and central government partners as to why are they not using data, And so the perspective I'll bring in this presentation, a lot of the what and the how and the whys have already been said, and I agree with a lot of that as well as the challenges. But the perspective I will bring is the perspective of state and district decision makers, administrators who want to use data to solve a particular problem. And so this particular presentation is about tracking local economic activity. So the Honorable Prime Minister has given the goal of making India into a $5 trillion economy. Several states have, stated their own goals of becoming $1 trillion economies. And so there is a lot of desire to make sure that all policy actions are geared towards achieving that goal. And yet, it's, if I can move to the next slide, I don't think this is working. Oh, there you go. And yet, today a lot of decision makers at the state and district level see that they cannot use the available data systems. And so what are some of those reasons? One is frequency. So a lot of the data that comes through the official systems, it comes with a lag. And so a lot of decision makers say, look, this is coming from last year or 2 years ago. I want the recent picture. I want to know what's happening now. And many people have spoken about the importance of real-time statistics. The second is the granularity of the data. I think they want this data at their own administration level. So they, one, of course, they want to know what's going on in their jurisdiction, but also in governance, it's very important to assign accountability to someone below you. And so knowing your own numbers is good, but it's much better to know how people who are reporting into you are performing. And so those are the two things that we try to solve for with experimenting with different non-conventional data sources. We are not trying to be very clear, we're not trying to find a different way of estimating GDP or measure all possible correlates of economic growth. So we are using a parsimonious set of indicators which are not going to be comprehensive. So I'm stating that up front. But, in the spirit of let us not let the good be the enemy of the perfect, let's start with this and see how far it takes us. There we go. Okay. So in terms of when we think of for this problem, what makes a good indicator, what makes a good non-conventional indicator, some of the things we have thought about are that they should be trusted and credible. Professor Mukhopadhyay has spoken about the moral hazard problem, that when you are going to use data to measure performance, it creates incentives to manipulate the data or move it in a particular direction. So one, that. Second, you need it to be high frequency. Third, granularity. I've already spoken about this. Fourth, you need easy interpretability. You need something that reduces the cognitive load on people who are very busy. And finally, they need to be connected with some sort of policy instruments. If I see a particular number, if I see a particular indicator, see some data, I want to know what do I do with that information. Knowing what the number is okay, but I'm like, okay, but what decision do I take? So to the extent possible, can these indicators be connected to particular decisions that people actually take? Two sources that we have thought a lot about, one is satellite data, and the second is these administrative data sources like electricity consumption, GST, vehicle registrations, etc. In terms of satellite data, I think people have already spoken about nightlight, so I will not go into that. I mean, that of course is a very increasingly conventional way of measuring prosperity and poverty across space. We've tried to actually use daytime imagery. So we've said, can we use daytime imagery and then develop machine learning packages that use daytime imagery to then extract relevant features from that and then train that using data sources that we know for sure are true. So we did this with the socioeconomic and caste census 2012. That gives very granular information on household income levels as a proxy for poverty at the village level. And so we basically said, can we take a part of a subset of the full set of villages in the country? Can we use that to train a machine learning algorithm on these daytime imageries and predict out of sample in the same year, and then use that to predict for 2021, which is when we needed to use that. And so, we get decent results for now, but like they are not perfect. I think some of the challenges with the satellite imagery, night lights we've already discussed. There are also challenges with daytime imagery. One of these is the fact that satellite imagery data isn't as regularly updated as we want it to be, number one. Number two, there is a lot of noise when estimating these type of indicators. And so if you're going to do that at a high frequency level, not much will change actually from space. So you can get income shocks, you can get consumption shocks, but the way the place looks from space doesn't change as much. And so at best you can use it for annual changes, but not more frequently than that. And in terms of specific targeted economic analysis, right? So you get a nice overall picture of what's going on, but you don't get sector-wide trends. You can't use this to think about, where are my tourists going and where do I want them to be going? And finally, there is a lot of challenge with actually ground truthing these data sets. So it's fine and easy to come up with a number from, our machine learning algorithms, but to what extent does it correlate with on-ground truth is hard. And I want to use this opportunity to say that, while I think many people have said before that, it's important to think about which non-conventional data sources can be used to supplement the conventional data sources, but that does not take away the importance of doing the conventional data sources also, So we have been able to do this because we had the SACC data from 2011 and 12. So I think it continues to be important to generate that type of rigorous data through surveys. That was on the satellite imagery data. We have been trying to use sort of other sources of data to think about how can we help districts and sub-district levels measure or track economic activity regularly. So we have identified a parsimonious set of about 25 indicators that is available at least quarterly. It's available at least at the district level and with a lag of at most 3 months. And we have correlated that with DDP numbers. We also get a high R square of about 0.8, but there are many reasons why that shouldn't comfort us into saying, oh, then it's perfect. We've used these indicators and aggregated that we've explored different aggregation methodologies. We landed on principal component analysis, but which methodology we use is not as important. And we have actually gone to several sort of block officials, tehsil and district officials and said, look, you are already so burdened with data. You already have so many dashboards. If we actually gave you this additional thing, will it actually be useful? And so at least at the district and sub-district level, there is a lot of enthusiasm because they say we did not know this data existed at this level of granularity. We knew it existed nationally, but we did not know that it was coming up through our system. So if you can actually make this data available to us, that will be quite useful. I think at the state level, there is still hesitation to saying that, okay, but this is not helping us actually estimate a value of DDP or GSTP, and we have to keep reminding officials that that's not what we're trying to do here. We're giving a complementary method that can help people track the same sort of underlying construct, but at a higher frequency. And I think we have got feedback that actually knowing what's happening in different sectors is pretty important. Just getting an overarching number is not going to be sufficient, but a sector number is quite important for them to know what to do about this data. And so, we can construct maps in different states of like what this index value looks like. That does correlate, doing this for states like UP, MP, Maharashtra has told us that, it passes our initial sense check. Districts that we think are, or what we know from official statistics are lower income, and those that we know from official statistics are higher income, are higher income. And so it is aligning with priors. And this is the list of indicators that I think I wanted to show you and spend more time on. So the indicators that we have used are things like sales at agricultural mandis, exports data, sale of tractors, which is available from the Vahan dashboard, electricity consumption, GST. For each of these indicators, there are going to be many, many challenges. If we actually take apart any one indicator, you can say, oh, but there is going to be this problem or that problem. If you think just about GST data, there's problems of, just delays, or there's problems of claims, there's problem of people not if you start using just GST data for measuring performance, you can have a little more aggressive behavior from local officials, who then the company is going to then contest that claim, and the company will win, but that will be with such a lag. So I think we want to be careful not to make this too high stakes, and so that it doesn't upset the quality of the underlying data. But our hope or hypothesis is that combining all of these indicators, each of which has a problem, is going to give a reasonable picture of what's going on in the economy at that local level, and incentivize action on the margin. So if I'm a district or a sub-district official, if I know if I know which companies are in my jurisdiction that are exporting, I can actually make sure that they are taken care of. I can make sure that they are not facing any troubles or challenges from my administration. I can make sure that any if they need any approvals or any renewals, I can attend to that with a lot more, I can expedite some of that, so make sure that they continue to feel that the state cares about industrial development. In some states, there is a lot of time that goes away in converting non-agricultural land to agricultural to non-agricultural land before you can actually start an industrial unit. And so, measuring that type of, if I know that, my delay leads to poor, industries not getting the land they need to set up, if I know that can make me move those processes along faster. So this continues the list of about those 25 indicators. I think some of these we have not actually started to use, but want to. And so I think, we want to be able to start actually seeing whether any of this data leads to actual decisions. I think we're not at that stage yet. We have done the analysis, we have produced these sort of indicators, aggregate indexes, shared those with the relevant officials, and are now seeing if that leads to any change in the way they actually operate. I think that was my last slide. I will conclude here, but happy to take more questions on our approach to this and what it means for, say, MOSPI. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nagpal, for discussing the use of non-conventional data sources to track local economic activity and supplement traditional macroeconomic indicators. Your presentation also details a proof of concept using satellite and administrative data for economic tracking, showcasing their strength and limitations. You also address the challenges of integrating such data, including bias and reliability concerns, and shared innovative solutions to tackle them. Thank you very much. Now we are open for the questions for the panelists. Any question?
Tanushree, you had mentioned you have set up a chief data officer. Now, is that prevalent in government circles now to set up for each department a chief data officer?
We are doing it under the National Policy for Data Sharing, and under that policy, once you want to give data to data.gov.in, the prerequisite is to have a chief data officer. So under that, the notification has happened, and now we have the system in place to be able to push the data that we need to.
So this question is not for the current panel, but for generally everyone. So hi, I'm Anjali. I'm working with UIDAI partners, and I'm working with the price statistics division on how we can integrate alternative data sources in consumer price index. Now there is a lot of what kind of data sources we can implement, but when we come to how we can implement it, one of the ways is to go to retailers and to online e-commerce companies, quick commerce companies, ask them for the potential data sets. One problem with this data is that it's not in your control. It's totally on the company to give it to you or to not give it to you. A lot of countries we went to, Canada, Austria, Australia, they have regulations in place, which currently is not in the Indian case. You have an Official Statistics Act, your COSA, but it does not mandate to give digital prices. My question to this room generally for brainstorming is that if we cannot put the regulation in place, first, do we need to think about putting an official regulation in place? And if not, how do we build that trust with companies? Because you build the trust with, say, one particular person, that person shifts, you don't have a legal backing for it. So how can that implementation actually take place in the Indian context?
If I can just mention it, that though the Official Statistics Act doesn't mention digital data, but it doesn't preclude it in that sense, because it just mentions any data. So it's for us to define what data we want. So I'm not too sure whether it precludes us from getting digital
It's
data.
not preclude us. When we were talking to countries, what they told us was that they went to retailers and they said that we want data. Now, one issue that was coming was that they were like, yeah, come to our stores, take the data. We won't give it to you with the scanner data or in the digital format. When we talk about alternate data and when we are saying that we want to replace it, we by default want that you give it us digitally. We want the actual prices. So with those blurred lines of it, even the companies can take the benefit of it and you're not able to procure the data. Secondly, when yesterday we had a meeting with 5 e-commerce companies, the companies themselves mentioned informally to us that there is no particular regulation in place. So when you're giving us examples of, say, Canada, Austria, Australia, you're talking about countries with legal regulations, mandating that specific price. So
Can I come in here, sir? Just for the Collection of Statistics Act, as sir was mentioning, that not only does it preclude, it mentions that data available in all forms, administrative, census, survey, and all other forms, published, unpublished. So therefore, insofar as regulation is concerned, it has a wide spread and it will embrace in it all kind of data, irrespective of its form. Because it talks about the form, so whether it is physical form, printed form, a published form, non-published form, digital form. So only point that what you are raising perhaps is essential is that probably they may not be aware of this kind of regulation and it may not be as much used in past. But essentially speaking, regulation provides for such things.
So can that we use that as a legal mandate when we're talking to companies?
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing is we haven't used this act as much as we perhaps should have or should. And the reason, and it's a very conscious decision we are doing it because this act until now had extreme provisions of punishment which mentioned on imprisonment if you don't give data. So we've removed all those imprisonment only last year after the Jan Vishwas bill and converted all imprisonment conditions to fines if you don't comply with the provisions. It's just that we haven't exercised, though and in some areas we have. I mean, there are, I think, 100 odd court cases going on for in collection of annual survey of industries. So it's just that we ourselves have not been using this act as a conscious decision, but the act is in place.
So this question about competitiveness, so like big basket, you can scrape ethically. I don't know what ethical means there. Maybe you can explain. Okay, not create a stress on their system to that extent. Right. So that makes sense. But at the same time, like we face this challenge that we wanted to give information of a particular kind of authentication across banks. But if we give out bank-wise data, I don't know if the bank is comfortable with taking out that data. So is there a possibility where we can anonymize the bank details and overall banking comes out, but at the same time we don't say this bank is doing better than the other bank? There should be other sources, because as government we may not be in a position to take that. So maybe technology can help us.
If I may just ask, data on businesses, just opening up of businesses and closing up of businesses, granular level can be extremely important. Like even in the work we've been doing with the DPIIT on industrial corridors, they're very interested to know what's actually happening along various nodes. And so I think my questions were specifically, Karan, because you've been looking at economic activity at a very granular level. Are there sources we can use there? I mean, there is, of course, the directories of establishment, and maybe one could use those over time to build a panel and see entry-exit. But any thoughts on that would be?
So there are official sources. So I think in terms of new registrations in EPF, new registrations in GST, new registrations under the Labours Act, and there are many such. When you start a business informally, you take those permissions, and so that data the government has. The challenge is twofold. One is that, I think it was Ankur who was talking about how 50% of the economy is informal. So there's a lot of businesses that start that don't get registered. And of course, over time, that proportion is increasing. The economy is formalizing. But I do worry about relying on these type of metrics does mean we are not yet capturing the informal economy. So that's one challenge. And the second is, as in some of our state level conversations, this tension comes up where it says that, at one end we want companies to register and so that they show up in the official data system so they can be counted, so they, help policymakers and researchers understand what's going on. But the companies themselves don't want to register under many of these provisions because the provisions themselves are very sometimes, aggressive or draconian, and they feel that it adds a burden. And so then the state faces this tension of, do I just want companies to start working and set up and at least some outcomes are being achieved, or do I want to make sure that they are all registered under everything? That's a bit of a tension. So I don't know if I'm not answering your question perfectly, but I think if to answer it specifically, EPF, GST, labor, these are types of data sources where there are registrations, and you can use that to track new firm registration or new plant registration. But I think there's also plans to do something like a universal business register, if I'm not wrong, which can also help with that.
Yeah, just to supplement on this question, actually in Ministry of Statistics, we have started working on a project which is called Statistical Business Register. And one of the important activities is that we want to do it on the secondary sources. We have identified 4 or 5 sources, and among them is one is the database that is available on MSMEs sector. Second one is on MCA corporate sector, and third one is on GSTN, and fourth one is EPFO. So we have a huge database that is available, and we are in talks with all these ministries to provide us the data. We had received some sample data from 1 or 2 agencies, and we are working on it, and we hope that maybe very soon we will prepare some kind of a database which will give us a sense of our statistical business register. And thereafter we are also working on how to update that statistical business register with a certain frequency, maybe quarterly or 6 monthly. So we are working on it, and hopefully it will come out soon. Yeah, thank you.
One more thing only. No, that will just bring me back to my question only, that I wanted to understand that if the fines of the regulation are actually big enough to mandate a company to even give data. If it's as less as say 500 rupees and if I'm Flipkart, I don't care about that. So I haven't seen the financial obligations, but maybe it might be worth at least visiting it and seeing that is it even big enough for a company to mandate. Again, I'm not saying that regulation is the only way to go about it. Other countries, you need cooperation. They will give you a dump of data and it's not worthy maybe of your use, and you need collaboration and you need partnership. But maybe what the legal backing looks like.
Can I just come back? Yeah. See, your point is well taken. Insofar as the amount of fine is concerned, it may not matter to them at all. But to my mind, the private companies and such big companies essentially imposition of fine by a government institution for not sharing certain data will have its pros and cons and consequences. So, ab initio they may say so, but if such an order is passed, it will be detrimental for them insofar as business is concerned. So it's not that it can be, swept under the carpet. But yes, as you rightly mentioned, that they may have to be brought on board and say that, these are important, legislations, regulations. And as sir was mentioning, that it's a conscious decision of, applying it, not applying it. But regulation has such provision.
Ma'am, if I may add a little bit on that, is that also I think, so in addition to, just the legal architecture, I think one of the things that MOSPI has started doing now is this awareness and communications campaign around the importance of good statistics. So I think when it comes down to in every arena of the society, there is a give and take between people who are giving the data and who are using the data. I think we see this in the social and health sector a lot, right? So Ashas and Anganwadi workers and ANMs have to enter a lot of data and they think that's a burden. But I think what is needed here is to make salient to people how the data is going to help them and how it will help them, but how it's already helping them. And I think making sure that I think one thing that is true for smaller countries that you mentioned like Estonia is the fact that some of these countries have done a good job at building that sense that this is our shared ownership, this is a shared public asset. So I think some of these legal architecture will have to be supplemented with what MOSPI is doing around the information campaign on how data is helping people.
May I?
Thank you, sir. I was going to say the same thing. And just to say that I won't downplay the importance of cooperation and partnership. And solely relying on regulations or laws is not enough. And like has already been said, I think it's about developing that trust with the partners to say that this data is going to be used for a particular purpose. I think that itself gives a lot of comfort in, we're not going to use it for to sort of downplay your competition, or it's not going to come back to you in any harmful way, essentially. And sir, also to Dr. Hassan's question, so I think just the SBR, of course, MOSPI is doing a lot in that area, and hopefully we'll have a prototype soon. But some of the states have also taken initiative in this space. For example, Rajasthan has a very good working state level SBR. And also Maharashtra is in the process of developing it. So various states have also taken initiatives, and maybe you want to have a look at those. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
What the Anjali has raised these issues there, and we are struggling these issues for the last 6 or 7 months there. We are writing to all this commerce companies there, but still we are not in the position to get the information from these companies. We are continuously in the touch with the companies there. The issues that which have highlighted about this Canada framework there for this CPI things there. This technology is not the new technology. It's about last 20 years. This technology is existing. All the developing states where they are collecting this information through the web scraping or this thing there. Only you see the trend there. Only the 45% to 50% the information is available to them, and the rest of the information they're going physically and collecting this information for developing the index there. We are also trying to catch up this thing just to introduce things there. But I have a recent example about the one state there. On the Monday we are in the workshop there, and the state was saying we are executing this act there. We have the Central Statistical Act there, but right now the Secretary has just mentioned that provisions on which they were supposed to give this information to us. Now this act, the provisions have been diluted, and we have the policy, Government of India's policy, ease of doing business there. Once we have the policy, we have simultaneously we have the act there. Then what? And the company and the industries, they are not giving the information on any of this data there. Then what we can do in this situation there? Only the provisions which I tried to just submit there, only that we have to educate the companies, we have to educate the industries, we have to call for the workshop, we have to interact with this workshop only. Only this way we can get the information. Otherwise, Gopalakrishnan already mentioned, if you have to go by this non-conventional sources, we need a strong legal framework, then only you can get the information on this.
Rather than burdening the businesses with more and more such requests, I think we should actually make this data available from the transaction data and things like that, like GST data or any other data. They also file with Ministry of Corporate Affairs. All these filings are already there. So we need to look at how can we get the data that we need from the from the data that's already provided by these businesses. That's how we need to think about these things. In fact, we should also have a parallel initiative where we reduce the number of submissions that we request businesses, so that that's part of the ease of doing business. We should reduce the number of filings that we ask from them. I have
say that. But three things. How did you ensure training data on this? That is one I wanted to understand, and the compute for it. Yeah. And since we are statisticians, so how did you handle the explainability versus accuracy issue? And what model did you use for that? So actually what we did in the initial, when we developed it for the first time for the Ministry of Defense, then we had requested the ministry to give us the data, and we requested their people to classify different grievances into different categories. The categories were classified only by them, whether they're important, unimportant, etc., etc. So for us, about 20,000 or 25,000 grievances were trained manually by the staff of Ministry of Defense who understand what is the gravity. And after that, gradually in the beginning, the model was not doing so well, but as the number of data were increasing, the model was getting better trained. Now it is working with more than 95% accuracy. The problem comes only when if somebody says that, okay, I have paid for the fertilizer and now I have not got my money back and the fertilizer also. So then it gets confused whether it has to be diverted to the Ministry of Fertilizer or the Ministry of Finance. So those things only are there. Otherwise, now it is more than 3 years it is working. So up to now, means things are going fine.
We'll have now last question from you, please.
Thank you so much. I'm Sunita Krishnan from the Gates Foundation. I'm just wondering if there's merit in taking a step back and sort of looking at the breadth and range of issues that have been surfaced today. And perhaps you're already considering this, articulating a national research agenda that would then sort of provide the framing for the diverse actors that are involved in attempting to understand how we can better leverage non-conventional data. And then creating some specific environments in which we can sort of coalesce different partners, whether it's a sandbox environment or a community of practice that provides a platform for learning and exchange. Because my sense is that we have vast resources in terms of academia, think tanks, consulting firms, et cetera, who can really partner with MOSPI and other ministries. But we may end up having sort of 1,000 flowers bloom without necessarily knowing what the garden actually looks like. So you may want to consider sort of a national initiative of sorts with certain platforms and environments built into that. Thank you.
So I'll just, I hope I'll extend it I take it as an offer to help us in that. So if that is so, please, we would be very delighted to work with you and your team because that's the objective, in fact. So that's what we want to do, because I think other ministries are also here. So I think each ministry, I would just take this opportunity to also request the others to look at what data that they are also already collecting. As Mr. Gopalakrishnan was saying, that perhaps we don't need to collect the same data again, because it is being collected in some form by someone somewhere. But the only thing is we might be aware also, but we may not be aware how to extract it from there and get it. So I would request each ministry, since the statistical advisors of all the ministries are here, I would request them to look at it internally, what is it that they can do. And more importantly, how to ensure that it's available depends on at what level of aggregation and anonymization. One is what is available within the government, which can be shared, which can be assuming that the confidentiality clause applies across all departments. So in case, even if there's sharing at a slightly more granular level, that confidentiality would be maintained. But more importantly, that would also allow other ministries to try and find out what is available with others which may not be publicly known. And I think in conversations like this, a lot of that also helps. But on our part, we are in any case, as I mentioned initially in my initial remarks, we are trying to set up some broad guidelines and also publish what data sources are available so that we can make better use. I think that overall objective remains, and I'm sure with the suggestions that have come today, we can maybe focus it a lot much more than where we are. Yeah, I'll stop here.
So in the end, I thank our distinguished speakers for their valuable contribution. The insights shared highlighted opportunities and helped us understand the challenges in integrating diverse data streams into official statistics. However, data security, ethical considerations, and data integration challenges such as bias and representativeness are also important and are to be addressed. So I thank our audience also for their active participation. Thank you.
With the conclusion of both technical sessions, I now request Dr. Pankaj Shreyaskar, Sir, Deputy Director General, ASPD, MOSPI, to deliver a formal vote of thanks for the brainstorming session. Sir, please.
Thank you. Respected dignitaries and the guests, it is both a privilege and an honor to deliver the vote of thanks for today's brainstorming session. As we come to the conclusion of this session, I would like to take a moment to express our sincere gratitude to the distinguished individuals who have made this session possible. First and foremost, I take this opportunity to express our profuse gratitude and sincere thanks to Shri Kris Gopalakrishnan. Sir, your deep understanding of technology and innovation have set the stage for today's discussion. Your inspiring words have undoubtedly sparked excitement and new ideas, encouraging all of us to think differently about how we can use non-conventional data sources to enrich official statistics. We truly appreciate your invaluable insights and the time you have dedicated to joining us today. Thank you so much, sir. We are grateful to Dr. Saurabh Garg, Secretary MOSPI, for his dynamic leadership and for his commitment to advancing our statistical system almost every day. Sir, your vision has been a driving force behind our efforts to ensure effective use of data in bringing all around improvement in official statistics and the decision-making processes. Thank you so much for your guidance. We would like to express our gratitude to UNRC, Shri Shombi for gracing this occasion with his presence and providing valuable perspective on the topic. Our heartfelt thanks are also due to Shri Rana Hassan from ADB, whose expertise and contributions in the realm of official statistics have been instrumental in guiding our thoughts. We are grateful to all the presenters for their wonderful presentations, which has incited so much of discussions and deliberations on the issue. We are grateful to Shri P.R. Mishra, DG Data Governance, for his constant guidance and tireless efforts in making this event possible. I am extremely grateful to the DG NSS and DG Central Statistics, the Additional Secretary, Additional Director Generals, and all the guests who are present here today. Our heartfelt thanks to all the other dignitaries from UN, from various line ministries, research institutions, and universities, friends and colleagues for taking time out to be part of this important brainstorming session. And finally, we would like to thank media and everyone, including the Vigyan Bhavan staff, for their support. Your participation shows us how important it is for all of us to make our statistical system stronger and use data to make better decisions. Thank you so very much once again, and I will invite you all for the lunch. Thank you.